The situation in Iraq is unacceptable to the American people, and it is unacceptable to me. Around half the troops he's requested have arrived on the scene. These troops are all aimed at helping this Iraqi government find the breathing space necessary to do what the people want them to do.
Dan Ebarb, thanks for coming, man. Been a long time, man.
It has been.
2006.
Yeah.
2006. So Dan was a lieutenant, platoon leader in Bravo Company 112 Cav. He participated in the Battle of Baqubah. And before we jump into the Battle of Baqubah, I'd just like to first, again, thank you for coming up, making the trip, and sharing your story. Your story's really absolutely hands down inspirational, and I think your story is going to certainly impact a lot of people in a very positive way. And with that said, do you mind taking a little bit of time and going over where you grew up? And I know you went to West Point, so what inspired you to join the military and go to the academy, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It's been I've enjoyed watching the videos and catching up with everybody and seeing where people are now. So born and raised in Louisiana, a small town called Natchitoches. It's kind of central Louisiana. Raised with I was blessed, absolutely blessed with my childhood. Was raised by my mom and dad. I had two boys, so I have an older brother.
Okay.
And he's a lawyer in New Orleans right now. He's been there for a long time. So grew up a small town, country boy, the stereotypical country boy. Like, I'd go hunting and fishing. That was what I enjoyed. I enjoyed being outdoors. What drew me to the military, I knew that I wanted to be in the Army. I was 10 years old, 10 years old. I knew that I wanted to be in the Army. And then I was probably 12 years old when I learned, there was officers enlisted, and that enlisted get to do with it. They're the ones that drive the Army. They're the ones that make the Army function. They get to do the fun stuff. They're the actual ones who do the job. But then I learned that a lieutenant gets paid more than a private. So
Okay.
It's like, okay, well, I want to make some money. So
How did you learn this? What shined that light on the military, and what shined that light on the difference between enlisted and officer?
just motivation, self-motivation.
Okay.
Like going out and I don't even know if we had Google back then, but we had some internet connections. And I remember doing book reports back before we really used the internet like we do now, and going through the encyclopedia and seeing like Desert One in the botanical line of encyclopedias, and reading about different Delta Force and all this different stuff, and that it was glorified.
Of course, yeah.
The military in my eyes, and so it was just complete self-motivation. I don't have any family that were. I have like a great aunt that was in her 80s. She was a nurse in World War II,
Really?
but
Okay.
that wasn't why I wanted to join the military.
What did your parents do growing up?
So my dad he was a administrator at a state high school in Louisiana, a gifted high school in Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts, LSMSA. And my mom was a teacher at junior high, reading and librarian teacher,
Okay.
or reading teacher and a librarian.
So hunting and fishing, you and your brother, was he into hunting and fishing as well?
So we were a little bit. We were pretty opposite. Where
Okay.
he was more into like that card game Magic that was old.
Oh, he was a gamer.
And I enjoyed playing sports. I played sports all my life.
Yeah.
And he just chose a route that wasn't quite the same in that town. There was this little league called Dixie Youth, Little League Baseball, and I always enjoyed it, and he didn't enjoy it that much, so he just chose a different path. But
Okay.
yeah, I was rambunctious as a kid.
Did you archery hunt, rifle hunt? A little
Both.
bit of both?
Both.
Yeah. I branched out too. I did, obviously rifle, in Pennsylvania, a lot, especially in Bucks County where I grew up, like you couldn't shoot rifle because there was just the population. So you always had to shoot like buckshot and
Yeah.
slug.
They had same thing in Louisiana. Kind of, they had shotgun season and rifle season, bow season.
Yeah.
So-
If you wanted to shoot rifle, you had to go
Did you
like
have to
up in the like Poconos and where the population was a little less sparse, I guess. And then I broke out in archery hunting too. I thought that was a lot more enjoyable. What's the biggest deer you shot?
On the Boone and Crockett, I think it was like a 132.
All right.
I've got it in my office. So.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
All right. We might have to get a picture of that and
Okay.
put up in debrief. So, all right. So hunting, fishing, some sports. You dug into Encyclopedia Britannica collection,
Yes.
learned about Delta Force,
Yes, sir.
the Army. Somehow you figured out the pay scale. I just went in completely blind. I was just like, sign me up, get me out of here. Yeah. Oh, and you're going to pay me to do this? Nice. You were certainly switched on more than I was. All right. So West Point, how were your grades in school?
I had good grades in high school.
All right.
I had good grades in high school, but it was a smaller high school. I think our graduating class was like 220 or 30. I learned the difference between officers and enlisted, and I learned that if you want to be an officer, there were only 3 ways to do it: an OCS, ROTC, and the academy. And I mean, I'm small town Louisiana. I'm nothing. I'm vanilla. I'm just a speck.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any chance in going to West Point. But I think I talked to the right person along the way or something. But I put my hat in the ring, but figured that I'd be doing LSU ROTC. But I think that I had some motivations along the way. I remember that there were some people in my town that was like, "Oh, you can't do that. You have to get a congressional nomination to go to West Point. You can't do that." And so I was like, "Hey, you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it."
Now, did anybody like guide you? Like, well, I mean, somebody telling you what you can't do is actually fueling the fire of, okay, so I need a letter from my congressman. Like, did anybody like guide you through that process, or were you just totally
West Point
self-guided?
does that. West Point does a good job of, sending out a packet. Like I think it was like if you call the number, or if you dropped something at their website, or send them an email or something like that,
Okay.
they'll give you a packet. And it guides you through everything. It tells you about the physical fitness test and all this kind of stuff. And so that was the way of doing it. I think that the closest thing that I had to a guide was an older guy. He was, oh gosh, class of someplace in the 40s. But a guy named David Young, and he had some stroke. I think that I talked to the right guy. He was a really a well-known guy, and he kind of talked me through some of it, but more the congressional side, more that administrative part that you have to check the box.
Okay.
But even the congressmen and the senators, they all have a process, and each process is a little different. Some require in-person interviews. Some people just require maybe a phone interview. Some people don't require any interview. But here I am in small town Louisiana. Each congressman had like 10 nominations they could give, and so
Is that on an annual basis?
yes, sir, I believe so.
Okay.
And so you take someplace like Houston, and you have a congressman that has 10 nominations, and you have all these kids from all these different schools that are wanting to do.
Right.
And then here I am in small town Louisiana. No one. I had people that went up to my parents, and after I went to West Point, and said they thought that I was a good kid in school, and asked why did I get sent off to military school. So like no one knew what West Point was. And
Wow.
Even more people or fewer people were applying for it. But no, I didn't think I would get it, but I managed to get in. I found out fairly early in my senior year that I was
And
going.
what year is that?
That was 2001. That was I guess 2000. I graduated in 2001. I guess I found out in late 2000 that I would be going sometime like November, December in 2000 that I'd be going to West Point. So finished off senior year. Not like being lazy, because they send you a packet and everybody takes pictures. Now it's a bigger thing. Social media wasn't that big of a thing back when we went through. But it says conditional upon your continued excellence, that they're going to grant you an appointment to the academy. So you can't just slack off and completely stop. But but it was a comfortable.
Get on the PT train too, yeah.
Yes, sir. They same type of thing. They give you a list of things like, okay, a checklist of things to bring, and you had to bring in boots that were already broken in and low quarters that already had some shine on them, and
Really? Okay.
all kinds of stuff. It was back before the days of chloroframs and jungles. We didn't have jungle. They didn't allow it.
Where did you get boots?
Fort Polk.
Really?
Went over to Fort Polk, went to a surplus store and found some all leather black boots.
Yeah.
And just the basic boots, and ended up going. I had to go to Fort Polk for a medical thing. Also, you had to do a medical clearance, and you had to go to a military installation to do it. They
Okay.
want a military doctor to look you over to do something. So I remember doing a medical thing over there. But yeah, it was a good time. So.
All right. So you're on the path based on continued excellence. Your senior year is 2001.
Yes, sir. Graduated 2001, May of 2001, and reported to Cadet Basic Training, or Beast, in July of 2001.
Okay.
So plebe year 9/11.
9/11. That's what I was getting to.
I figured it kind of sounded that way. So yeah, 9/11 plebe year.
Kind of bracketing there, right? So that's an eye opener.
It was. I was naive going in. I was more focused on the fact that I was going to West Point, and that I got into West Point than I'm going to be in the Army after this. I know I was going to be in the Army after, but like reality doesn't kick in. You don't know what the real Army is. Like in West Point, West Point wasn't the same as what day-to-day Army is.
Yeah.
And they do that intentionally, but I didn't know what I was going into my plebe year. So
Little culture shock, a little shock to the system.
it was. I think that I had a thicker accent back then, and just out of like survival, I had to get rid of some of my accent.
What do they say? Be the gray man. Like, do you want to try
you
to
just be in the middle.
Yeah, not to stand out one way or another, right? Either, but you get that thick Louisiana accent. It's gonna.
That yeah.
You know who General Honore is, right?
Who?
General Honore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Raging Cajun. That guy. He never lost his accent. That was a pretty impressive Louisiana accent. All right, so you make it to West Point, and life's good.
It was. I loved Beast, the cadet basic training. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was I wanted to go crawl through the mud. I wanted to go climb ropes, and I wanted to go do the obstacle courses and get yelled at and live in a shelter half and do that kind of stuff like that. I wanted to do that. And so West Point they'd have their military time during the summers, but then they, transition back to the academic year, and now you're in school.
Yeah.
You're in uniform, and you're 100% covered by TRICARE, but you're still a student.
Yeah.
So that, just getting used to that, and it was a pretty rigorous academic life.
What was your major?
So I did a Department of Military Instruction, or DMI, major. And I started off with law, but my sophomore year, they call it yuck year, I realized that, wow, that's a lot of reading that they do, and I hate to read. There's nothing recreational for reading with me. I think that if a book is that good, they'll turn it into a movie, and then I'll spend an hour and a half watching it.
That's about my mindset.
So I got out of the law, and then the DMI guys, they were getting to wear BDUs every day. DMI that was the thing, was like, they were wearing BDUs to class.
Why was
instead of
that?
for class. I don't know. I don't know if it's all the DMI professors were always in BDUs.
Okay.
Where everyone else was in Class Bs. So
It's
it
the
was a
little things.
mindset. It was a mindset. It's kind of like at Ranger School, they joked about how during binning phase, the patrol hat, the PC's pulled down real high, and they're real strict and everything, and then mountains phase, gets kicked back a little bit more, and then Florida phase, it gets kicked back even more, and the DMI instructors, they just had a different type of everybody there was amazing, and Pete Chapman is over there. They're all amazing people.
Yeah.
The instructors there get to be instructors because they're picked, handpicked. But the DMI, it was just a more relaxed atmosphere.
Okay.
I figured I wanted to be infantry. I wanted to carry a gun. So that just seemed kind of like the right fit for me. And it was. I enjoyed the classes a lot more.
Did you get to go to any special schools while you were in school, like Air Assault, Airborne?
I went to Airborne. And so we talked about it earlier, CTLT, or Cadet Troop Leadership Training, where they take the cadets and they send you off to an active duty unit, and you bird dog around with the lieutenant, and you learn what real Army life is like as a platoon leader. And so they had SFCTLT, and they had Ranger Battalion CTLT. And so I wanted to do SFCTLT. And if I couldn't do that, I wanted to try Battalion CTLT. But they ended up, because of 9/11 and the op tempo for all these different ODAs deploying, whenever I was eligible for it, they got rid of SFCTLT. So I had chosen my first summer that I was eligible to go to a military school, to go to Airborne, because you had to be Airborne certified to go to SFCTLT. So my whole point of it was, I want to go to SFCTLT. If I could do it over again, I would have done Air Assault, because infantry lieutenants all go to Airborne. They live 100 yards away from the Airborne barracks, and that way you could have gotten both of them for some more flair on the uniform. But anyway, I wanted to do SFCTLT. I was thinking about making a career. So I did Airborne while I was at school, and then you have to do a detail at West Point, which means so your first summer at West Point you do Beast, Cadet Basic Training, and then your next summer before your sophomore year you do Buckner, or Camp Buckner. It's held there at West Point. It's kind of an offsite of West Point, cadet field training, and so that's kind of where you learn I guess first summer you learn a little bit like kind of how to be a cadet and how to march, how to DNC, drill and ceremonies. Your second summer is where you learn more. You're introduced to every branch, and you learn more how to be a soldier.
All right.
That's where you get to fly around in the helicopter, the Blackhawks. You get to go to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and drive a tank and shoot the 105s or the 155s, the Paladins, and the 105s. I think you shoot every weapon system, just as an introduction, just to fan fire, getting used to it.
Cool.
Just to say you did it. So everybody's hung
So-
a mortar around or whatever.
So where did you wind up doing your CTLT? What unit?
I went with 11th ACR out
11th
at
ACR.
NTC. So
Oh,
I
nice.
couldn't do SFCTLT, and so somewhere somebody told me like, "Hey, look, the next best thing is with Op 4. You go with the opposing force, and like during a rotation, Blue 4, they get shot, they have to go and get reconstituted and go through this whole process in a 24-hour wait period, whatever. Op 4, they just fight and they barbecue." And so that's what they were telling me, is like, "Hey, look, go to 11th ACR and go fight, and then whenever you get shot,
Yeah,
then
and you wear an
drop ramp."
unconventional uniform,
Oh, yeah.
and I think they wore berets too, yeah?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I still have it. And so I did armor CTLT with 11th ACR.
Oh, was that pretty cool?
It was different. They had the what do they call them, Viz mods.
Yeah,
So-
there were Sheridan tanks that
Yes.
were fitted out to be like BMPs and T-72s and what have you.
Yeah, they had all the different things welded onto it or duct taped on to make it look like whatever it was, a
Yeah.
Russian.
The Krasnov, I don't know if it was the Krasnovians when you went through, but I want to say
I
that
don't
was the
That
fictitious
sounds
force
familiar,
that,
but
that
I
we
don't remember.
would
It's been too
fight.
long.
Yeah, NTC, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a good time.
I did not know you guys would send people out there for that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
And they fight, and if you're in a vehicle and you get killed, your little whoopee light goes off saying you're killed. They drop ramp and they start barbecuing right there. So it was a fun CTLT. I enjoyed it.
Interesting. So where were you specifically on 9/11? How'd that go down?
So I was a freshman, and I was in chemistry class, and I remember I was coming from one class, and then they sent out an email. The cadet company sent an email saying, "Hey, look, plebes can use their computers to watch TV because of this. What's going on?" The first plane had hit the tower, and they said this is breaking news, so they're going to allow us to use our TVs to watch it. And so then the second tower hit right before I went to chemistry class, and I remember our chemistry P, or a professor, Major Farnsworth, and I think Colonel Farnsworth by now, but engineer officer, great guy. So I was in chemistry class, and he was watching TV, and I remember him saying that he's watching, looking up at the monitor, and he just said, "Well, great. This means we're going to go bomb the hell out of some third world country now." And so, he kind of predicted it a little bit, but we still, I don't think, we knew, okay, something's up, and we were under attack. But I remember the whole force, what was it called? Force protection? The
Yeah.
posture?
The different levels.
The force protection posture. Sorry, been out of the military for a long time. But the force protection at West Point changed immediately.
Yeah.
And we heard that West Point was a target because short of the Pentagon, the highest concentration of officers was West Point. It's the cadet rumor that we were hearing, that I heard. But they did take, I think it was a battalion of 82nd came up here, or came up to West Point.
Really?
And so we had fire teams of 82nd guys walking around in BDUs, full kit, M4s, walking around.
Wow, I did not know that.
In the cadet area. So it was interesting. During the football games, we had the 82nd guys walking around for the first several football games. That was really the home football games. It was really neat.
Talking about like really making things real, though, right? Like,
It did.
Like not only the towers hitting, but to see that threat con level go up, to see active duty guys from the 82nd patrolling on your campus. Wow.
I thought it was kind of cool. again, I was still,
hey,
yeah, I'm still new. I'm still eating up every military thing that I can, loving it. And so when I see, okay, well, that's the real thing, like, hell yeah, let's get involved with this.
interesting. So, what year did you graduate West Point?
2005.
05. Okay. Did you go? So West Point, did you go to IOBC right after that? Well, first, I assume you put your name on the list, your dream chief for infantry. What was your second choice?
Well, so aviation was my first choice.
It was.
It was. It had to be. I was going to get in trouble. So LASIK, eye surgery, was becoming a bigger thing.
Okay.
And there was a major, I guess, ophthalmologist there at West Point who was lasing, shooting cadets. And so every weekend or two, he would take a busload, a 15-passenger bus down to, I think it was Walter Reed where we went. And you had to pay for one-night hotel. And then the next day you go and he'd do LASIK on, this group of cadets. So I got LASIK for like $64. I remember the hotel room was like $64.
That was a deal.
It was a deal. It was good.
Both eyes?
Yes, sir. And
nice.
so I was a horrible contact wearer. I wore my contacts 24 hours a day for months, and it wasn't good for my eyes. So LASIK was a great thing. But that major said, okay, like, if you tell me that you're going aviation, then I'll bump you up on the list, and if you're a firstie, it'll guarantee that you get LASIK done to you. And so I was like, look, I'm so low in the class, there's no chance of getting aviation anyway. So yeah, hell yeah, I'll put aviation as first. I don't care.
I gamed it.
And so West Point, one thing that, and I know you saw it because I saw a picture of you standing next to the monument, but it has a cadet honor code. A cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do. And so the major said, if y'all tell me that you're going to put in for aviation and you don't, I'm going to put you up on honor. And so that's the one thing that will get you kicked out of West Point real fast. So yeah, I had no problem at all putting aviation down as my number
And
one.
that's his story, and he's sticking to it, folks.
Yeah, that was before the digital age. I don't think anything's been saved. So I think I'm in the clear by now. But infantry was my second. Armor was my third.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Nice.
they said, why carry your gun when your gun can carry you? That was the pitch from the armor branch rep when I was like, okay, it makes a little bit of sense. I'll put you as third.
And little did you know you were going to get a little bit of hybrid, right?
I didn't know that. Yes, sir. I didn't know. So we have post or branch night, which, oh gosh, I can't remember when. It's probably sometime October, November, December timeline, maybe. But you have branch night at West Point, and that's when everybody gets together, and they're all in a big auditorium, and they pass out the envelopes, and you open the envelope, and there's a branch insignia of what you're going to be for the next, 5 years, 8 years, whatever it is. And then you have post night. And so post night comes a couple months later, and that's where all of the infantry guys get together, all the ordnance people get together, all the armor guys get to the aviation guys. Well, no, aviation didn't do it because aviation, they all go to Rucker. But so all the infantry guys got together in a smaller auditorium, and they had a certain number of slots for every post. And so 101st, they had the Screaming Eagles there, and I don't know, it was probably 20 people could go there, and same thing for the 82nd, and then they had Fort Hood, they had the 1st Cav Patch, and they had all these different things. And so I chose Fort Hood, and that's when I knew I was going to go Cav, and was looking forward to it. Again, I was still just eating up the military, just loving it, wanted to get involved, ready to get in, graduate and hurry up and go.
Yeah, the Cav. Talking to Colonel Conley, Chris Conley, when he wound up, like you do light, and then they send you to mech, or if you're in mech, you go to light. And he's like, I said, how'd you wind up going to Hood? He's like, if you're going to be mech, you go to mech line, and Hood's the place, and. Yeah, hey, to me, this is the home of the mechanized infantry. Like, there's no better unit to be with if you're in the in the mechanized world. So that must have been kind of exciting to be part of the first Cav division.
I was excited. And then I got my orders and it said that, before that I'd wanted to go to 2-7. I did that. Gary Owen really interested me, and then the whole Mel Gibson movie came out with We Were Soldiers.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go to 7th Cav. And so I think it was my sponsor had it was the first Cav division commander came up to West Point, and so here I am, stupid cadet Ebarb, that I get this bright idea that I should reach out to the division commander.
Why not?
Be like, hey sir, what's up, Bob, whatever his name was at the time, and say like, hey, I'm coming to first Cav. I'd love to go to 2-7. Like I can't believe I did it. But anyway, so my sponsor ended up reaching out for me. But when I got my orders, I was going 2-7 Cav.
You were?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So then, but fast forward, whenever I showed up, 2-7 reflagged to 112 like
It sure
a
did.
couple months before I got here. So all that for nothing. But it was the guys are still the same. The legacy was still there, so I was still thrilled.
Yeah. So you went to IOBC, then Ranger School?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
I had 2 months off between graduation. You could choose whether you wanted 30 or 60 days.
Okay.
Some guys were ready to go immediately. Some guys wanted to, have as much time. I wanted as much time off as I could. So that was also when, during that time I started dating my wife, Sherry. So she's from the same hometown as me.
Okay.
She went to school with my brother. I went to school with her younger brother. And so we knew each other, all our lives since I was in elementary school. So during that 60-day leave, I was able to, spend a lot of time with her.
Nice.
And but yes, sir. After that, IOBC at Fort. This was before the BOLC days, the Basic
BOLC,
Officer Leadership
yeah.
Course. They had a couple guys from our class that went through as like pilot, like BOLC 1, BOLC 2. I forgot what 1, 2, or 3 or whatever it was, but they ended up going through BOLC. One of my buddies, Kyle Bringle, I think went through BOLC and was talking about it, but he went through IOBC, or we went through IOBC at Benning. After IOBC, I think I did mech leaders before Ranger. I can't remember if I did mech leader. No, I definitely did mech leaders before Ranger.
Okay.
And so as an infantry lieutenant, like everyone's going to Ranger school, everyone. And for the entire time that I was at Ranger, or for the entire time I was at West Point, we heard about infantry officers and Ranger tabs. Like, look, if you're an infantry officer and you go to your unit without your tab, the battalion commander will look at you when you're going back. Like, what happened when you're going back? So they were sending waves of lieutenants from IOBC graduates over there. So I ended up going, beginning of February of 06 to Ranger. And then I graduated in May of 06. I had to recycle Mountains phase.
Okay.
Learned
What
some-
got you?
It was patrols, but I learned valuable lessons at Ranger School. One of them was so at Mountains, the RI that I was a platoon sergeant, and I was given the platoon sergeant role, and for this one patrol, and I rocked that patrol. I did everything perfectly to the book, and see, like, everybody knows what the job of each other, what the positions are. So like everyone knows what the platoon sergeant's supposed to do.
Right.
And so all my buddies were like, good job, man. You got your go. Like, you definitely got your go. And so I thought the same thing. Well, my RI, my lane walker, was never with me. He was off talking to the squad leaders RI. Like, they were just smoking, joking off on the side. And I just assumed that he was watching what I was doing and that he was like, okay, dude, squared away. This patrol's going on. So at the end, he calls me over and he's like, hey, Ranger, how'd you do? And I was like, I did good, Sergeant. But, hey, look, there's always room for improvement. Communication, you can always improve in communication.
Yeah, you don't want to be like.
I was trying to be,
Ranger,
I was trying to be
right?
humble. I was, the Spotlight Ranger. So I was trying to be humble because I thought that it was a given. And so the night that they call you out and they're calling roster numbers for who's going to Florida phase, swamp phase. And they don't call my roster number. And I'm thinking what the hell? So that same RI, the ones that grade you, they call you over and they have to critique you. And he's like, hey, look, Ranger, good patrol, but you could have improved on stuff like communication. We can always improve it. And he basically just said the exact same thing that I said back to him. And so that pissed me off. But it was a good thing because recycle phase in mountains was great. The recycle phase during binning, all those recycles were having to paint rocks and poles because Best Ranger was going on, the Best Ranger competition. So they had free force labor.
Yeah, I've
they
heard
were
stories of that.
Raking grass and stuff. But they gave us more time for food. We got care packages, in between phases.
Okay.
Well, when we threw it all in the dumpster, we threw it all in one giant garbage bag. And so as soon as the sun went down, we snuck out and we went back to the dumpster. We grabbed that garbage bag, and outside the barracks was this 5-ton truck. And it was old, or was it the Deuce and a Half? I don't know, 5-ton truck. What it
Either
was.
or, yeah.
It's like what the LMTV replaced.
Yeah.
But we stashed food, junk food, all over that 5-ton truck. Every nook and cranny that could be hidden in. So I gained weight back during recycle phase. And then the next time, whenever I did a patrol, Lane Walker called me over and was asked how I did. I'm like, I could not have improved. I did everything perfect. There was nothing I could have improved on.
I walked on water that whole patrol.
The entire time.
Amazing.
I did my job and everyone else's.
It's funny.
So got my go, went to Florida, got a go. And after that, once they got infantry lieutenants graduated from IOBC and Ranger, that was the focus. Then they start pushing you out to your unit. And so...
What about the mech leaders course, though? What did you think about the Bradley? Was that the first time you saw one? I mean, obviously you probably saw one at NTC.
Seen, yes, sir. I'd seen them. Got to play around on it. It was fun to play around on. It was good to learn. And then the other thing was it wasn't just lieutenants at that school. We had active duty guys that were coming in and also doing it so they could give their perspective. Some guys that were wanting to go to Master Gunner that were giving their perspective that we could really learn from. So it was a good time. It was a gentleman's course. So
Okay.
you're not getting smoked. You're not getting yelled at. You show up, you learn all the different acronyms for all the different rounds that the Bradley will fire and fin stabilized, tracers, spin decay.
Yeah.
I remember all the different stuff like that. But it was a good time. It was fun. We got to go on the Brads and learn about the Brads hands on. Learn how to. It was the stuff that you would want to be able to show up to your unit as a new lieutenant and have at least a working knowledge of how to hook up the 25, how to hook up the Bushmaster, like the feed shoot trays.
Yeah.
How to hook that up.
It's
how to disassemble, reassemble, how to load the boxes, how to work the 240.
So
how
they
to
put
do
you through
everything.
the paces there. Cool.
Yeah, it was a fun time. It was learning what your job is. So it's been 5 years of learning what my job is gonna be, So it was. But it was a countdown. I knew that after mech leaders would be Ranger, and soon I'd be off to a unit.
All right. So then you're off to. Did you get to rekindle the flames with your hometown sweetheart?
So we stayed in contact throughout IOBC,
Okay.
and we either it was a 9-hour drive back to Louisiana. I'd make the drive for a weekend.
Yeah.
It was worth it, if like she was a banking officer and her family worked at this bank back home, and so they had a Christmas party, so I'd drive home and everyone was like, okay, he's driving 18 hours to come spend time with you, like he's being serious. And so that was, well, I guess, no, it was the day after Ranger School that I proposed to her. So I had been writing to my mom. You can write letters at Ranger and receive letters at Ranger. And so before I went off to Ranger, I had picked out the type of ring I wanted, and this family back in Natchitoches that were jewelers, they were going to build it. And so I was kind of talking with my mom on, via letter snail mail, and she, sent me a picture of it and told me that she got it. It's like, okay, well, this is the plan. But then when I recycled mountains, I got nervous because I wanted to propose on her birthday, which was May 6th, and we ended up graduating May 5th. So luckily it worked out well though. So graduated Ranger. I had a couple days leave after that, I think. Went back home to Louisiana and ended up proposing the day after Ranger with the bald head and everything. Still had my bald head from Ranger being shaved. But she said yes. And
All right.
so that was May of 06, and we were married August of 06, August 26th, 2006, because we knew that there was a pending deployment, so we
How did you know that?
well finished Ranger School and got my unit orders and showed up here, and ended up the first time that I met my platoon or anybody from Bravo, we went out to the field. They were out in the field doing FTX, and so I joined my platoon out in the field.
Nice.
I think we didn't have a platoon sergeant at the time. Sergeant Reynolds came a little bit later. So I forgot who it was that was acting, but we had, our 2 section leaders and our 3 squad leaders. And yeah, Sergeant Rojas, Sergeant Feely, Sergeant Embry. We've been bringing up names all day so far, but it was a fun time meeting them out in the field.
So they're out doing training with no PL,
Yeah, I
no
think that
platoon sergeant.
I think they had an acting platoon sergeant that was doing everything.
Yeah, but no
no.
E7 that was like, hey, and how far out were you guys from deployment at that point?
That was maybe June, July.
Okay, so
I think June.
You guys
That was
deployed
June.
what, early October?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
So
I couldn't think of a better way to meet your platoon now.
it was a fun time.
Who
I say that a
picked
lot.
you up? Did you meet Captain Chapman?
So
like back at battalion? Like,
Ryan Bakey.
talk me through that.
Ryan Bakey was platoon leader also. He was first platoon leader. Ryan Bakey was a classmate of mine from West Point, and he was our first captain. So he was the highest ranking cadet of all of my whole class. And so I had some competition. I had to, if I have my first captain from West Point, the highest ranking cadet's a platoon leader, I have to at least keep up with him. So Ryan met up with me, and he ended up bringing me out to the field. I think maybe Baron Moffett drove me. Our XO drove out. But I remember, meeting my company commander for the first time. I knew he was a West Pointer. I'd heard that he was squared away. I'd heard he was great. Everyone loved him. And the very first thing, I'm standing out in the field, kind of meeting, like, hey, look, hey, specialist, so-and-so, I'm in your platoon. I'm so-and-so, I'm in your platoon. And this random person comes up behind me over my shoulder and said, what would you do if I said Goods World Atlas? And I laugh. I'm dirt. So at West Point, you have to say everyone has to take a geography class, and Good's World Atlas is the textbook that everyone has had to use for dirt. They called the class dirt, and so that was my introduction to my company commander. Was what would you do if I said Good's World Atlas? But I mean that was Pete. Pete was amazing. He had a goofy side to him, but he was squared away. Never
100%.
once did you ever get the idea that like the goof took over. Like the goof was there. He was laid back, but he still expected you to do your job. He still expected a lot out of you. And it was. I was looking forward to it, and this is the moment that you hear about for 4 years at West Point.
Right.
Meeting your platoon sergeant, meeting your commander, meeting your first sergeant, like all these things are moments that are talked about for 4 years. And so, Pete made it a really easy engagement. He didn't, you hear these horror stories about lieutenants talking about meeting their company commanders that they smoke them or they, try and stump them in front of the platoon, make them look stupid, make them look like a fool. And Pete made our meeting pretty relaxed. He took off any tension when he said, "What would you think if I said Good's World Atlas?"
Yeah. Pete had a good way, and still does, of putting people at ease, and having fun. But at the same time, he's always he's all about the business though too. So that's cool. So what kind of training was your platoon doing out there?
I don't even remember. We were finishing up. I think it was basic, like the most basic of things: react to indirect fire, react to contact, just like battle drills, the most basic of battle drills. And they were so short-handed, so short-staffed that they were happy to get anybody.
Right.
And you also hear about for 4 years you're told don't make changes when you get your platoon. Like when you go and you take a platoon, just watch. Don't if you want to talk, if there's something that you can speak, educationally informed about, then go for it. But other than that, just watch. And short of something being illegal, right, or criminally immoral, then keep your mouth shut and just watch. Right. And so that's what I did was just watch the squad leaders, and it was all squad level stuff, no platoon level stuff. It was all squad level battle drills, and so I got to see the squad leaders react or interact with their squads. And I had great squad leaders. I had phenomenal squad leaders.
Yeah.
I could not have asked for any better ones. But yeah, it was probably towards the end of the field problem. I think I might have stayed out there one night.
Okay. It's interesting. Like you said, they were so short-staffed, right? And that's something that honestly, I don't know if we ever overcame excuse me, the short staffed part. And the reason why I say that is when 2-7 came back from deployment, people go stop loss. They're on hold. They didn't go to school. There's several different factors, right? So 2-7, when they come back, all those people essentially disappear, right? They ETS, they PCS, they're going to school. Here you are, 4 or 5 months from deployment. You said June? Was it June-ish?
Yes, sir. It was either June or July. I think it was June.
So June, July, August, September, October. So, 3.5 months and you're still not fully staffed, right? Or fully manned. I just knowing what I know now and where we were and what we were going through, it's tough to know that we're, you know, 3.5 months away from deployment and we're not at 100% strength, right? Like, how do you build and train your units if you don't even have the whole team? So, anyways, I'm glad you had mentioned that, because it's to me, like, the lessons learned process of the debrief is, you know, we have to, like that manning, that staffing's absolutely 100% critical of you know, to go into the fight at 70 or even 80% strength is, that's tough for a platoon leader, a platoon sergeant, company commander, first sergeant, because you're expected to do and maintain things at a company level, but when you're at, you know, 75, 80% strength, it's kind of tough, right? So, anyways, I appreciate you sharing that part. So you guys get out of the field and get back to hood, kind of garrison environment. Where's Mrs. Ebarb at?
When was well, so she was still Miss Pearson at that time.
Okay.
But she was still in Natchitoches, still in Louisiana.
Okay.
So, but it was nicer to be, you know, from Fort Hood to Natchitoches was a lot shorter drive than from Fort Benning to Natchitoches.
Okay.
So, I think it was like a 4 or 5 hour drive, 4.5 hour drive. So it cut it in half. So I was,
Okay. Still
even
making
better.
the commute. Still don't have a. When did Sammy show up? Sammy Reynolds. When did he show up on the scene?
I don't remember. It wasn't too much later. Maybe a month or two after that. It
Okay.
wasn't too much later. But I remember, like, they were telling us that, you know, oh, hey, battalion is promising us the next D7. Battalion is doing this, or division is going to give us the next, you know, platoon sergeant that comes down. But it was a lot of that. I remember a lot of, like, you know, we're getting the next one of these. We're getting the next one of these. Because, yeah, we were pretty short.
Yeah. So, was Fort Polk JRTC rotation on the schedule as well?
They had already finished the JRTC rotation.
They had?
before. Yeah, I
Okay.
missed that. I missed that. I was still in Ranger School whenever they were doing JRTC.
Wow. So 3rd Platoon, 112 Bravo, goes to JRTC, because it must have, and I can't remember when we went. I was at brigade when we went. But you go to a major training event and the platoon doesn't even have their platoon sergeant PO. Wow. Whew. Okay. Wow.
So I don't know what their status was. I don't know when the last time they had a PO before me. But, I mean, like I said, the NCOs that were there, they took over.
Of course.
It was, I mean, they did the best of what they could, for sure.
Always. So did you get to go shoot gunnery?
We did. We had to qual before. It was, you know, the driver and gunner and VC. We all had to go and do, you know, the gunnery skills, the tables, whatever it was.
Yeah. So you did computer based, right, in the simulator, and then did you go out as a company or did you go out as an individual crew and shoot?
I don't remember. You talking about for the actual qual?
Yeah.
I'm sure we did it probably as a company.
Okay.
I don't remember if we were on our own Brads at the time. Do you remember, like, if they had like one Bradley that would, like, crews would rotate in and out of?
I think so. Based on the timeline, I think our Bradleys were probably already on
They
a
were getting
railhead.
railheaded, yeah.
So what we did, what I did, because I was the brigade master gunner at the time, I had to own that. But, you know, Colonel Southern's like, hey, and really, like, you don't want to deploy with unqualified crews, right? Like, that's the least we could do is get you guys qualified, because we did know that people were starting to still flowing in, right? Because we weren't not at 100% strength, but we were slowly building. So what wound up happening is we would have Bradley staged out at the range, and that's exactly what people do, is hotbed off of other tracks, rotate in with your crew, and then you would shoot gunnery, and then you would go to the next range and shoot gunnery. So that probably wasn't as a company, but it was probably crews from the company. You guys would come out.
I'm sorry. We definitely didn't. The entire company definitely didn't go out.
Yeah.
But they might have had, okay, hey, 3rd Platoon crews, you're going to be going and doing gunnery between this time and this time. And I don't remember if they lined us up like all the crews of Bravo Company went, but
so
I don't know.
you didn't have the best experience, right? Like, and
Not the optimal
in
experience.
theory, right? Like
Yeah.
you graduate school, you do all your extra training, you go to mech leaders course, you come, you unite with your platoon sergeant, and then you get to do some local training and meet your guys, and then you have this slow ramp up to a major training event, and somewhere in there you go through a gunnery. You kind of came in hot, right? In the unit was already through their major training exercise, and you're kind of playing catch up at this point, especially minus a platoon sergeant, right?
Yes, sir.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's another dot getting connected for me. So, but in typical Army fashion, we just keep going, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna
Do it. You can do the job.
You're gonna do what you need to do to get ready and get your people ready. What else? Like, what other kind of workup did you guys do?
There was a whole host of pre-deployment tasks. And I remember I had to get a guy's, we went to a gym, and it had like one station where you go fill out a will, another station where you go fill out like a power of attorney, another station you go get the smallpox vaccine, another station you go sign this and do this. And
Was that SRT? No, SRTP's Master Gunner School. What was that stuff? Pre-deployment.
I'm sure there was an acronym for it.
I
I guarantee there was an acronym for it.
Yeah, I think it was PDSR, pre-deployment. Anyway, I'll have to look it up and flash it up on the screen. But yes, it is. It's a big. You get the different shots and dental checks. And
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It's like you
Everything.
have to. It's like the no kidding. You have to. I forgot all about that. Yeah, so you have to go through that and get all your stamps, and so you can go deploy to combat, right?
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
smallpox. We were all kind of joking about the smallpox vaccine because it leaves that weird thing, and it's not like a normal inoculation, like a normal injection. Like it's microscopic needles that they stab into you.
Yeah.
I don't know how it was weird. And then we had to
Yes.
we all had the flu mist. They didn't do flu shots. They gave us flu mist. And I remember that was that was right before deployment, because I was already, well, no. I remember my wife was with me. I don't know if she was just visiting or if we were married at the time. But I remember that flu mist, like, made the entire company sick. I remember showing up, so that night after getting it, I wake up and feel like death and go to the bathroom, and I'm just feeling horrible. I remember laying on the ground. I think I was naked in the bathroom. But then showing up to work the next day and going into company, and there's dudes like lining the outside of the company throwing up in the grass because that flu mist just knocked everybody out instead of a flu shot. But anyway, so that was also the last time I ever did the flu mist. I refused at that point. I was like, I'm doing the injection. I'm not doing it. They were short of the injections, so they gave us the mist or something. They were short on everything.
So, you guys know you're getting deployed. Things are like, vehicles are gone. You guys are getting qualified on gunnery. You're doing some workup, some, administrative things as well. Was there anything else?
There were the same thing with gunnery. You know, you have to go and get qualified,
Yeah.
and so same thing with platoon battle drills. Like we had to go and get evaluated as a platoon with assaulting an objective or establishing a entry point, and like going in. It was a lot of mount stuff, a lot of movement over urban terrain, or CQC now, or CQB.
Yeah.
Looking back, having seen the training that I've seen now, and how I've gone through the training that I've gone through now, I feel like we were horribly underprepared before training. Like IR, so like the I think we had the PEC 2s at the time, the PEC 2 office.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone had zeroed their PEC 2. I mean, we went to the range and did the alternate qual, or the alternate zero, where, you know, it's like a 25-meter zero. Or no, I guess it was the alternate qual, where you shoot the 25-meter.
So it's tough, right? Because a lot of stuff is broken, getting fixed, getting issued.
Yeah.
People are still rotating in. And it's not due to the fault of lack of will, of like people not wanting to do it. It's one of these things where it's like just the time and space, right? Like, again, you reflag a battalion, you lose 50% of your people, and then they're slowly coming back to you. And then you have all of these other tasks, right? It's I can't argue that you know, we could always train better, and things like night qual, zeroing your lasers. You know, there's a lot of things that you know, in the big grand scheme of things, the prioritization
Exactly.
is something's got to give, right? And it's like, okay, well, and I think that another thought, not making excuses, just trying to get in the head of where everyone was at, is we didn't really have a location to deploy to, right? Like
Yeah.
our
Or a time.
our mission was, hey, you're going to go to Kuwait and be the brigade ready reserve, or the theater ready reserve. Was that what you guys were told too? Did you know that?
It changed so much,
Okay.
and the timeline changed also. So that was why, you know, we ended up choosing this one date, and it all fell into place perfectly. Where like the church had a spot, we could get down there and do it. I had some like guys come with me from Hood and came and did the arch for us to walk underneath at the wedding.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Everything worked out well, but yeah, we were trying to hit a moving target as far as like we didn't know when we were going to deploy, and it either was like, okay, you have this 3-week window, okay, there's this 2-week window, okay, it got pushed back a little bit, okay, well now we got a 1-week window, and we eventually learned, you know, came down on October 4th. But yeah, it was a moving target for a while.
Yeah. Well, and you.
And same thing with where.
The,
We didn't know where we were going to go or what we were going to do at
right,
first.
like Baqubah wasn't on the radar.
No.
And myself and Mark Austin, we all left. I actually flew on September 11th, 2006. Myself and Mark Austin, and we went as the brigade master gunner, and he was the assistant 3 with Colonel Karcher and a couple other folks. We went over early, and the plan was to set up ranges and do all of this great training as a brigade until we got the call to go in. But where in was is nobody knew, and we didn't know, because actually, and this was a dot that I had connected, debriefing with Sergeant Major Phelps. is they were actually talking about drawing forces down in Iraq. So they weren't in a hurry to put us in unless they absolutely needed to. And so the intent was there was a remote possibility that we could have spent our whole deployment in Kuwait. But that changed rather quickly. Myself and Captain Austin and Colonel Karcher and we're all at what's that, Camp Buren, and my job was to set up all the ranges and do everything and have everything set for when the units started rolling in. We had a plan, and I think about a week into doing all of this planning and driving all over the desert and doing all this coordination, every night we'd sit out in this little courtyard and a couple picnic tables, and we smoke cigars and just shoot the breeze. And Colonel Karcher comes over, and we're just sitting there jaw jacking, and he comes by and kicks his patrol cap up and fires up his stogie, and he's like, "Yeah, I just got to have a meeting." He said, "You know all that training we're planning?" He said, essentially, trash it. It's a non-factor right now. We're going to push the units into Iraq pretty much as soon as we can once they get here. So, yeah, change of plans. And so Bravo Company, I was interesting. We were talking earlier, and Captain Chitty also worked over in the Brigade S3, and he wound up taking over a tank company. And myself and Mark Austin went to his ceremony, his change of command. And after that ceremony, Sergeant Major Harris grabbed me. He said, "Hey," he said, "why don't you stop by my office after the grip and grin, because they had a bunch of sandwiches and refreshments and stuff." And so I went over, got some free food, and I'm like, "What the heck, Sergeant Major Harris want?" I've never really communicated with him up till that point. I think I saw him on the range a couple times or what have you. But he's like, "Hey, Bravo Company is having some issues, and I don't think their first sergeant's going to overcome them." Or actually, he knew that. He's like, "Hey, you're going to wind up being Bravo Company's first sergeant, but what we need you to do is help get the units over and through gunnery when they get into Kuwait. And once they're through that, you could go and take over Bravo Company." So,
Wow.
yeah. So, talk about not being a perfect, integration, but it was cool. I was pretty stoked over that, but I thought I was going to have a slow immersion and get to meet all the guys and, build a relationship with the PLs and the company commander. And the first time that I actually had a conversation with Pete Chapman was on the ground in Kuwait.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's where we met you.
yeah. So it was definitely not an ideal situation, and not knowing like Baqubah, I'd never even heard of it, and I had spent a year in Iraq prior to that. So so you guys deploy. When did Sergeant Reynolds actually show up?
I don't remember. It was sometime probably a month after I got there, maybe two.
Okay.
I mean, he was there long enough to get to know us, stateside.
Good. How'd that go? Was it like, yes, I finally got my platoon sergeant, and
Everybody has different, stories of how, and you hear about, especially as lieutenants, like, okay, how you're going to meet your platoon sergeant, and I was expecting this massive 6'4", 250-pound, dude that's going to come and take over the platoon. And that wasn't Sergeant Reynolds, but he was squared away. He knew his stuff. But we didn't have the close relationship that you hear that some PLs and platoon sergeants that they have their relationship that lasts for the rest of their careers, and they're meeting again as lieutenant colonels and command sergeant majors. But I mean he knew his stuff. He knew, and that's all I could ask. He took care of the guys. I don't think that he I don't know. I can't really say anything phenomenal about our relationship. I haven't talked to him since Iraq.
Okay.
But we worked well together, and he had my back. I felt like he had my back. With like the other PSGs, the other platoon sergeants. But he had a good reputation among the company, among our platoon.
Did. Yeah, I mean that relationship gets built over time, right? And hardships, and I think, I mean honestly, I think you guys were robbed of that opportunity, right?
Exactly.
Because you don't have that build up. Like, hey, platoon sergeant, platoon leader, we're getting ready to go and do the squad level training and NTCs or JRTCs, and like you guys aren't building that relationship that needs to be built. Again, I don't think you guys were set up for success, and him coming in, 2 months, 3 months before deployment.
And he's trying to meet the platoon and take care of the platoon and do all the tasks that he's been, tasked to do, that he was brought in to do. But he's also trying to train me, as a new PL, to get the stuff done that he needs done, because there are things that I had to sign or things that I had to fill out, and inventories that I had to do. And he can't sit there and hold my hand on something while also going on and taking care of what he needs to do. So it was also a lot of like I've said, I can't harp enough on it. The NCOs that were in my platoon were.
You had some great NCOs.
There were some that were just flat out warriors. That I could see lived another life as Vikings, plundering and pillaging, and I mean they were just straight up
blue platoon,
warriors.
Man. And so you guys wound up getting over into Kuwait. You get on the ground. It's October. Obviously, you guys know we're pushing in, right? From the time you guys hit the ground, we know we were going north into Iraq.
We did. And we still did those ranges that y'all set up. I remember driving, in those buses, being bussed over to those ranges. That gave me the worst feeling. I was always nervous because no one had ammo. When we fly over, you fly over in a commercial flight, which is, it's really weird. You send over your it was like A and D bags or your C bags, or you send over all these duffel bags in connexes beforehand, and you just carry the basic essentials and your weapon, like sensitive items and your weapon. And so, you go on this commercial flight, and you have people putting 240s and saws in the overhead bins.
Isn't that awesome?
Like everyone's got
Please put all your weapons in the carry-on and stowed position.
That's about what it was. I remember the stewardess saying, like, okay, this is obviously the safest flight that I'll ever be on. So I remember flying over there, but then you don't get ammo. Like, and the public doesn't understand that, like, I could go and draw my M4 any day of the week, no problem at all. We had who was the armor? What the armor was it? Corporal
Kennedy?
Yes, Corporal Kennedy. So we had Corporal Kennedy, and he was squared away too. And he would help us out, and he'd draw, issue out nods, optics, M4s, whatever. But the military doesn't get ammo. Like, that's a total separate request.
It's a whole nother love affair.
And so. And then it's like delivered to the range only, never to and like there at the company level, like at the office where all the troops, no one brings ammo there. Well, when you deploy, they don't give you ammo before you deploy. And so we landed and no one has ammo. And so then we go on
I
these,
mean, it is
these
Kuwait.
ranges. It is. But we go on these ranges, and they put us on these buses, and the buses are like blacked out because they don't want anyone to know who's on the blacked out buses. But they give one magazine per bus. And so it was just nerve wracking because, I mean, like
I do remember that. Yeah.
so I'm deploying, and to my mind, I'm going to war, and now, but I don't have any ammo. But yes, we're in Kuwait, but I still want ammo. Like, and so I remember I was able to squirrel away a mag, so at least we could have two mags on that trip. But yeah, every time they would give one person one magazine per bus, and then they would take it back whenever you finished.
Wow, I totally forgot about that, but yeah, that was a thing. Yeah.
That stuck in my head.
So the training, did you get to do? I think we wound up spending a little bit of extra time on the ground. I don't know, maybe a week or two. In Kuwait. And let me just tell you, from my view, right? Like again, we all have these pictures of when we're going to meet our company commanders and platoon leaders and platoon sergeants and stuff like that. You guys get on the ground. That bus came in, and I was the E7 promotable all the way up until the day you guys were coming in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool. And
I had, before I deployed, went and had my road guard vest sewed up. I had a patrol cap with First Sergeant Diamond. And I had First Sergeant rank, and I had to put it on. I was waiting for, like, I don't know, somebody to come over and give me the head nod, like, hey, because my number was coming up, and actually, no, I'm sorry, I was a master sergeant, but I didn't have the diamond.
Good Sharpie drawn it in there.
I wasn't going to second lieutenant. What was that? First lieutenant? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had everything pre-positioned in my locker, and the buses. I know Bravo. I'm tracking you guys, right? I'm looking at rosters. I'm like dying for information, and I'm like, I'm just going to promote myself. And I took Master Sergeant off, and because I didn't want anybody to see me as a Master Sergeant. I wanted Pete and the rest of you guys, when you saw me on the ground, it was like, you're going to see me there wearing
It's
the
a
First
psychological
Sergeant
thing.
Yeah,
that's the right thing to do. That was the right call.
And nobody ever said anything to me about it. It was just like, okay, there's First Sergeant. I was like, okay, it's but that night, I got to meet Pete. Of course, I laid eyes on all the platoon leaders, and Baron was there on Advon, I think, a couple days before you guys got there, and I was very apprehensive, but after meeting Baron, meeting Pete, meeting you, and Lieutenant Bakey and the platoon sergeants, I felt so much better. I did. I was just like, oh, okay, all right. We're squared away. We're gonna be good to go. And Sammy, just doing the initial reads with all the platoon sergeants. Sammy had the most experience mechanized. 100% he did. So I certainly relied on him to help, because you can't do it all. You can't do it all as a first sergeant. You can't do it all as a PL. It's like the teamwork's making the dream work, right? And Sammy certainly had that level of expertise when it came to those Bradleys and what right looked like. So I leaned on him an awful lot. So how much do you remember doing any other like combat drills in Kuwait before we pushed into Iraq?
I remember going to the ranges. I don't remember exactly what the ranges were. At least one of the ranges we were on our tracks. or we were on tracks. I don't think they were ours at the time. But I have pictures I need to get to you from like one of the ranges, one of the
Okay.
Bradley ranges, and yeah, it was. I mean, it's just nothing but desert. And I remember it was weird because there was like a fire off in the distance that you didn't normally see. I remember seeing camels,
Yeah, there's camels out there for sure.
but just out in the middle of nowhere. But we did several ranges. I don't remember exactly which ones, but I think, and it was like, okay, hey, mounted sections are going to have a range. Okay, dismounts are going to have a range.
Yeah.
So we had different things at different times. But I think that, whenever the dismounts were off, I'd go off with them, and the sections would go off and do maintenance on Brad's,
Yeah.
or maintenance on something, or practice and PT. But yeah, I remember it was divided up also. Like, okay, everybody's gonna go qual with their M4, show proficiency with their M4, or I can't remember exactly which ranges we had.
Do you recall the movement into Iraq?
Let's see, was that the Chinook rides in? I remember landing in a Chinook. I think that it was at Warhorse. Was that when we got to Warhorse?
Well, I think we flew into Anaconda first,
Okay.
and then we went from
Was that on COA-30s or?
I think
Or was that
like
on
141s.
Okay,
like,
but
like the,
Air Force.
the big aircraft.
Okay.
And then when we landed at Anaconda, we took helicopters
Yes.
into Warhorse.
Yes. That's what I was
Can you
remembering.
pull the mic a little closer?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's what I remembered.
The helicopters land at nighttime. We get a briefing. We foot march up to our company area, and that's where we're given a plan. And 2nd Platoon was sent to the tankers that night. 3rd Platoon, that's when we had to tell you guys, hey,
Yeah.
there's vehicles here.
Yeah.
You're going to go out to the government center.
Because we still didn't have any ammo.
Right.
So I remember trading because there were people there at Warhorse for other units,
Yeah.
and so I remember linking up with some tankers because like we were still assigned our chews, the container housing units, the chews, but we didn't sleep in them that night. Like we left. But I linked up with some tankers. You're just getting to know them, and I traded an M9 holster for some loose and linked 5.56 to pass out.
Just make you feel a little more comfortable.
Well, give my guys something like, hey, look, if we do get, and we did it. It wasn't. It was like a right seat ride type thing. It was the unit that was already there. I guess it was 4th ID. They were the ones that convoyed us out
Yeah.
to the GC. So
Yeah.
I mean, the trucks had ammo,
Right.
but
Yeah, and they were all combat loaded and stuff.
Yeah.
But you still feel a little
yeah,
bit.
it just made me feel better.
Yeah. I don't blame you. So, and this is all happening in the cover of darkness, right? So you get out to the government center, which was how far of a ride was that? You recall?
I don't. But that being the first time out, I was kind of, because there was a curfew, right? So there was supposed to be nobody on the streets. So we drove it like it was stolen. I mean, like we were driving everywhere, wrong side of the road, right side of the road, sidewalks, wherever we needed to go. So that was an experience. Seeing that for the first time was kind of interesting.
Yeah, the speed is your friend for the most part, right? So you get out to the government center. What's Dan Ebarb thinking now? Like, okay,
You'd have to bleep it out, probably. That's probably the thought that was going through my mind was like, oh hell. No, it was okay. It's finally game on. So it was. There were a mix of feelings because, like, we were it. Yeah, so at the government center, there was a platoon of military police, or at least a component of military police. And then there was one lieutenant colonel and two majors, I think, or maybe three majors there that they lived at the government center. And anytime there was a convoy out, the military police took whoever it was out. They convoyed out and provided security for them. But we were tasked, and it was a rotational thing where, you know, the units would come back and rotate and provide force protection or security for the government center.
Right.
And so we were like, okay, these platoons are going to rotate out. But yeah, it was interesting. Like, okay, you're on your own. We were a platoon. We were it. I didn't have a company commander there telling me exactly what to do.
That's right.
We didn't have a first sergeant telling us exactly what to do. So it was kind of a good feeling because, like, I could do whatever I wanted to do, but it was also like, okay, well, I hope I don't mess this up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember I met with the platoon leader, the infantry guy that was with the unit that was getting ready to go back home, and he gave me about an hour before he was like, okay, well, I'm gone, and he walked me around, showed me the GC, introduced me to Lieutenant Muhammad, the Iraqi counterpart. So I guess it would help to explain how the government center worked all the way around. There was a platoon of Iraqi army soldiers there and a platoon leader for that platoon. We shared the responsibility for force protection. Bravo Company was sharing the responsibility for force protection of the GC with that Iraqi platoon. So we had 2/3, it was shaped like a U or an N, in whichever direction you're looking at it, 3 wings. And 2/3 of it was Iraqi controlled, and then 1/3 of it was U.S. occupied. And there's a big steel door that separated the two. Just on every floor, I think it was 3 stories, 3 stories. The other stories, or the other floor, it was walled off, but there was one steel door. So we had access to go into their side. They did not have access to come into ours. They'd have to like knock at the door or something. So he introduced me to Lieutenant Muhammad, showed me around. There were OPs up on the top of the roof. And so, our observation posts, machine gun bunkers, sandbag bunkers, if someone doesn't understand like what the OP was. And so 2 of those OPs were manned by Iraqi army soldiers. 3 of the OPs, including 1 on the ground, 2 on the rooftop, were manned by us, the U.S. side. There was a back gate that we also had like a little miniature tower or OP on. And then there was a command post room that was inside the government center. That's where like Sergeant Reynolds would be, or that's where I would go be. And we would have, I know there were security monitors in there with security cameras going, and I think like a news channel or something, and then also radios with everybody. And yeah, we're trying to establish, okay, we got 3 squads. We're gonna have 1 squad on, 1 squad on QRF, 1 squad off. That'll be the rotation. This squad starts. I think the very first rotation, there were a couple guys that were already in the OPs, and at the same amount of time that lieutenant gave me, those guys in the OP gave, my guys, that hour of this is what we do here before they got in a truck and took off. So then we were just doing our job. And so that's when all the lessons of everything started kicking in. West Point lessons, military lessons, you never stop improving your defense.
Yeah.
Like you constantly are supposed to improve your defense.
Yeah, man.
So we started doing stuff to enhance our capability, our lethalities.
How did that look like when you got up there? It was like, oh, these guys it's squared away, or was it one of those things that it's like, was there? And not to dig on fourth ID.
Yeah,
but,
it wasn't.
I mean, what kind of improvements were you going to do?
Anything would have been good. Plussing up the amount of ammunition was like the basic, first thing we could do, because we had all this ammo that, like for the 50 cal, there's a 50 that was up on one of the OPs. We had 50 cal ammo down at the, I think they had 400 rounds or something, not that much. So that was like the first thing we could start doing. The camo netting had started to fall. The camo netting on the OPs had started to fall. It would start to allow soldiers to get silhouetted. So we fixed all that. The soldiers that were there, they didn't do anything bad. I mean, they were. Imagine that you've been deployed for 15, 18 months. I don't know how long they were deployed. 12, 13 months.
12 months, yeah.
And you're an hour away from leaving.
Yeah.
The only thing that's standing between you and home is your platoon leader talking to their platoon leader and telling him what to do. And I mean, they were just ready to go. They'd been there for a year. They'd been doing their job for a year. They were ready to go.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they were, they weren't falling asleep on guard or anything like that. Like,
what was the threat level there?
I don't remember. I remember.
Did they communicate like, hey, this is
So maybe. I don't think there was anything specific that had out of the blue. I think it was, like, hey, look, we're just here. I know there was a building right next to the GC that was like an Iraqi intelligence. It was a joint building. There were U.S. assets there too, I think, but it was like an intelligence hub.
yeah.
And I remember shortly after we got there, surely y'all heard about this, because they came over and they told us, like, hey, look, 200 insurgents are supposed to they've paid off the IPs, and they're supposed to gather together in this, field across the street from us or somewhere in a show of force to show, like, you can't do this, and they're going to come and attack the GC. And I'm
like, cool, bring it on. Defensive position.
Man,
yeah.
I mean, it was. It's funny, there's the 3-to-1 rule,
Yeah.
and 200 would beat the 3-to-1 rule. We would have given them a run for their money, but it turned out to be bogus.
Yeah.
But well, that was October 31st when they did that. So that was Halloween. That was the day I got shot.
October 31st.
Halloween. So I remember they woke me up that morning and they said, hey, sir, we're supposed to get attacked by 200 insurgents. And that's all. I forgot who it was that woke me up, but that's what he said when he woke me up. And I remember sitting on my bed, on the side of my bed. I had just woken up, and I'm like, okay. And it started to kick in, and I just remember almost like when the school bully says, like, I'm going to meet you after school.
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, like, oh crap.
Okay, got a little anxiety going on. Got it.
But then I remember we have guns, and we have we have Bradleys, we have guns, we have all this technology, all this lethality, and okay, bring it, So that's fun. I was like, okay, well, threw my boots on, and so we started plussing up the OPs with men, weapons, equipment. We had an OP that usually wasn't manned. We manned it. We threw more ammo up there, more 240s, everything we could, everything we had, and waited throughout the day into the started to get the dusk, and nothing was happening. But then Lieutenant Muhammad had reached out and said, hey, I want to meet up. So I talked with him, and he gave me this radio this Motorola like a HT, just a handheld walkie-talkie. And he's like, this way we can keep in touch. And so we had our ICOM radios that were local there to the GC that our platoon used, and also the Blue 4 guys that were there, the majors and the lieutenant colonel. They were all the MPs. They all had the same channels. But he gave me that radio, and so he called me on the 31st, and he's like, hey, I want to meet up on the roof and show you like some of the stuff that I want to do. And you know, Lieutenant Muhammad was all right. I didn't trust him, but I did not trust him yet, you know.
Right.
But so I met him up on the roof, and he had this big bright green folder, like this big, you know, bright 8.5 by 12 or bright green folder, and handed it to me, and he'd drawn on the GC like where he wanted different things, and like he's like thinking, I'm gonna put sandbags here, and then I'm gonna put sandbags here, and it made a little sense, but not really. I don't know. So, but he walked me from one side all the way around to the other, showing me everything he wanted to do and all the improvements he wanted to make. And about this time, it was starting to get dusk. The sun was just starting to go down. We probably had like 20 minutes, 30 minutes till the sundown. And so we was like, hey, look, it's about to get dark. We're going to take off. And I had Sergeant Bowlby with me. He was one of my squad leaders. And he came from 25th ID. He was my only squad leader that was light and had light experience.
Yeah.
The other guys I had that were with 2-7 when 112 was 2-7. So up on the rooftop, and Sergeant Bowlby and I, you know, said bye to him and started walking. And I don't know, a few seconds later, my body just locked up and I fell over. And I just remember hitting the ground really hard, and it knocked the breath out of me a little bit. And Sergeant Bowlby was, you know, I looked up at him, and I remember, you know, everything got slow. And like, you know how when you're low crawling and you have your helmet on, and you're dragging that helmet on the ground, and it's torquing your head.
Yeah.
Well,
I know
you
exactly
could just lift it up to relieve that torque, right?
Yeah.
Well, when I fell, my helmet was dragging the ground, but I couldn't move to relieve that torque. I remember my head being stuck that way. And so I thought, okay, I've been shot. And like this probably all happened within the span of a couple seconds. And I'm thinking like, okay, I've been shot, and, you know, I can't breathe. I'm probably about to drown in my own blood. And like, that sucks, but can't change it. Can't do anything. But after probably 3 to 5 seconds, I could start to breathe again, could get air back in my lungs. And the bullet went in just above my collarbone right here, and diagonally through my body, hit my back sappy plate, and lodged between the skin and my left shoulder blade. But it didn't hit my spine. It just went right beside my spine. And so, you know, if you're a hunter or a gun guy, like when a bullet goes into water or to a body or anything like that, it causes a sudden rapid expansion of air called a wound cavity. And so rifles have a more permanent wound cavity than pistols. The velocity of a rifle round causes more trauma than a handgun round. And so that sudden rapid expansion of air right next to my spine was like a baseball bat hitting my spine. And so in Germany, they told me that the spinal cord inside the spinal column was bruised and swollen, and that swelling was what was causing the paralysis. And so like from, you know, the bottom of my sternum down, I couldn't move anything. So back to, you know, 3 to 5 seconds, I figured out I could breathe. So I was like, okay, my airway's clear. But it deflated or punctured one of my lungs, or deflated one of my lungs. and so, and half my diaphragm was paralyzed, and so I had a really weak voice. And I remember like yelling up to Sergeant Bowlby, I was like, help me, I've been shot. And he's looking at me, he's like, I think you got electrocuted. I don't want to touch you. I think you got shocked, like electrocuted. And I was like, no, I got shot, help. And he didn't want it. I remember I couldn't move anything at first. And finally I could like flop my arms around. And then after, I don't know, probably 30, 45 seconds more, I could finally get dexterity back in my hands.
Okay.
I got on the radio, I called down to Sergeant Reynolds and was like, hey, COG, or SOG, this is COG. Like, Sergeant of the Guard, this is Commander of the Guard. That was, the acronyms that 4th ID used, we just fell into what they did. And so, like, SOG, this is COG, I've been up on the rooftop. A sniper just shot me, roll the QRF, send the doc up. Well, we had been running QRF drills. I mean, that's just one of those things that you do when you have a new mission. You run QRF drills. We set the standard of 30 seconds from the word until out the door with your gun, 30 seconds. And so we were running QRF drills. So I called down. I was like, SOG, COG, roll the QRF. He's like, Roger, running QRF drill. I'm like, negative, real world injury. I've really been shot. Roll the QRF and send the medic to the rooftop. He's like, Roger, sir, running QRF drill. I was like, no. And so there was a major that was there all the time, and he was always in our butts over everything. If one of my guys didn't have his helmet on, he would come and fuss at me that my guys were all jacked up. Right. If there was a weapon that was 2 feet away from the soldier instead of in his hands, he would get. So he was always a pain in our butts, but he was monitoring the radios, and he was like, hey, Sergeant, I think this is a real thing. Roll the QRF and send the medic to the rooftop. So Doc Wynn came up to the roof, and I remember we started to get some more, like, some of the guys realized, like, oh, hell, LT's been shot. And so, like, 1 or 2 of the guys from the OPs came over, and so I was telling them, like, okay, take off my molly, take off my IBA, my body armor, take my rifle, reach in there. In my shoulder pocket, I had a quick clot dressing. So, give me that. I'll hold it on my neck. They started looking for an exit wound. They couldn't find anything. And I remember it was dark. I remember Fox was there, Private Fox. He had just joined not too long before.
Foxy.
Yeah. And so Fox, I remember looking up and I saw him, and the sun had started to go down to where the sun was down, but it was still low. I remember yelling at him. I was like, get down. You're silhouetting yourselves. Like, we had a group of people that were standing over me.
Yeah.
So I told Fox to get down. And so we had a stretcher that was up on the rooftop next to one of the OPs. And so they ran and grabbed the stretcher and put me on it. I just remember, like, doing a sit-up, but instead of pivoting from the waist, I pivoted from here. And I sat up, and I remember, like, touching my side, and I'm like, oh, crap, that's not good. That's not good. And so that was before everybody was getting there. But we got the stretcher out, got me on the stretcher. I remember Fox was on my front right foot, and he, I think Fuller was on the front left foot, maybe. But Fox tripped and fell, and I spilled out on the roof of the GC all over again like Gumby, just.
Ugh.
And so I yelled at Fox and told him to get off the stretcher and got somebody else there. But, I mean, he's a good dude. So somebody else grabbed it. We ran in, and we got down to, it was like the mayor's office in the government center. It was some official's office. Yeah. And we were stuck because there was a locked door that was preventing us to get to that metal door. So when they brought me down, they decided we were going to use that place, the roof, the built up room with the door that leads to the stairwell that they used to get up. And so I remember, there was a maintenance guy, an Iraqi guy, that had all this big old thing of keys, and he's trying to open these doors for us to get us thing. And Fuller, specialist Fuller, he was like, sir, if he didn't hurry up, I'm going to kick the door. Sir? Sir? And I was like, kick it, Fuller. And so he kicked that door, and that guy was like, got mad because he had the keys right there. So we got around to the U.S. side, controlled side, and they had pulled in everybody. If you remember, they had a kitchen over there at the GC.
Yeah.
And they had some, were they Indian or Pakistani? They had some cooks that like hadn't left the compound in like 4 years or something.
Yeah.
And they pulled them into the hallway. Everyone was lining the hallway that wasn't, a combat troop. Because we were thinking like, okay, this is that 200 person assault, and they're just kicking it off with, a sniper shot.
Yeah.
So we waited until the MPs could kit up their vehicles to convoy out to get me to wherever next level place we were going to go to. And so they finally got their stuff good, and we went outside, and they tried to put me in the back seat of a Humvee. Well, one of the things that we had done was we realized that all the stretchers were too long to fit in a Humvee, so we cut the handles off of all the stretchers, except for the one that was on the rooftop. The ones that were on our vehicles, we cut the handles off so that it could fit inside the Humvee.
And shut the door,
Yes,
right?
yes, and
Got
shut the
it.
door. It was the stretchers were too wide or too long to fit inside that wide Humvee. So there were some some Illinois police that were there on contract teaching the Iraqi police how to police.
And
they had an up armored Suburban. And so they slid me under this back shield of the windshield, or not the windshield, but the back door had like a ballistic plate. They
Yeah.
slid me under that, and then Doc Wynn was like straddling my chest, looking at me, and I felt legitimately tired. I'm like, I'm not going to pass out and not wake up. I'm fine. I just can't move, but I'm tired, and I'm tired, and so I'd like close my eyes and wake up.
don't you go on me.
And so we traded words, but they, in fact, the driver of that Suburban reached out years later and said, "Hey, I kept a journal of every day that I spent in Iraq, and I wrote about this experience, and wrote about you, having to drive you and like what y'all went through, if you want it, I'll send it to you." So he sent me the journal. It was really cool. I'll try and get you a picture of it. You can like flash it up. But, so we took that up-armored Suburban and the Humvees, and they convoyed us out to Fob Gabe.
Yeah.
It's an old SF fob, I guess.
Yep.
And so Fob Gabe, they had a I don't know what you call it, combat service support hospital, but they had a like what you would equate to an ER, a trauma ER type. And so
Doc Roach was out there.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's when they cut everything off, and I'm just like there in all my glory.
Ta-da!
Yep. Yeah. Dignity. Don't let my dignity get in your way, guys. Y'all just do your thing. I remember they tried to take my wedding ring, and I fought them. I was like, nope, no. And one of the docs was like, just leave it. And so they put all my stuff in a Ziploc bag, my belt and everything. And so they couldn't really do anything there for me. I mean, other than just stabilize me, keep me still. So they got a Black Hawk over and put me in a Black Hawk. And right before they put me in that Black Hawk, they gave me morphine. And so that Black Hawk ride is where I start to get fuzzy. And it's like I pick up little bits after that. But the Black Hawk ride took me to Balad, a hospital in Balad. And then from Balad, they flew me to, I was in Balad for probably 2 days, 3 days.
Did I think Pete came up and saw you in Balad, yeah?
So
do you remember?
Yes. I remember I remember a couple of people visiting, There's a pilot, another lieutenant, Deb Hunter, and Deb would go on her free time and visit the wounded guys, just because she's a kind soul like that.
Deb Hunter?
Deb Hunter.
Okay.
She's so now she's a pilot with some commercial airline, off making her millions of dollars. She's awesome.
All right.
So Deb ended up coming by and saying hi, and I remember the conversation vaguely, but she found out that I was West Point '05, and so she knew one of my classmates was there, so she ran and grabbed another lieutenant, Patrick Bell, and Pat Bell and I were company mates at West Point,
Okay.
D3. So Pat Bell came in and said hi. But I remember, I want to say it was either a lieutenant colonel or it was either a battalion commander or brigade commander that came by to say hi. And I was hyped up on morphine, and all I wanted was to watch a movie. I don't know why, but I was like, I just want a movie and a TV. And so here's this colonel that's like, he's powerless to help me. But now I've given him a mission that he can actually do. He's like, hey, can we get a TV in here? Can we get a DVD player? And so they sent like one nurse off to get some DVDs, and they rolled in this big old screen, and I'm sure I wasn't conscious for more than 5 minutes after that.
Yeah.
But they had a TV playing, and he came back. There was a nurse came back. He was like, I got you some chocolate and some DVDs. And I was like, so we ate chocolate and watched a movie for whatever little seconds I was awake.
So a couple questions. One, Quick Clot. Was that your own?
Yes.
Quick Clot that you
Well,
brought over?
No, actually. The lieutenant that was leaving the GC from 4th ID, he had it in his shoulder pocket, and he was like, well, I don't need this anymore. And he gave it to me.
Really?
And so I had it in my shoulder pocket too. I was like, he did it. He's successful. He's still alive, so I'm going to do it. But no, it was something we didn't have normally.
Yeah, because I don't think Quick Clot was a standard practice, because I know we didn't get issued it, but I know some dudes were getting it on their own and having it shipped over and different things. Because it just had, the Army, it's got to go be, tested in, multiple different ways. So the Quick Clot piece, the shot. Did you ever hear a shot?
No, I felt it.
That was just it, just a shot.
Yeah, that was it, man. So they cut the bullet out in Germany, and so it's a steel core round, so it was an AP round, so it didn't mushroom at all. So it just ice picked straight through my body. If it would have mushroomed, it would have killed me. Imagine the trauma it would have caused if it would have expanded. But
there's no rifling on it or nothing.
No, there's. Yeah, if you look at it, there's 4.
Oh yeah, okay, I see it right there.
The very tip is slightly bent, but it's been on that keychain ever since, December of 06. Yeah, because I don't know, somebody was like, you should make it into a necklace or something. And, it's spent too much time around my neck already. I'll put it on a keychain.
You never lost consciousness. No. All the way up until the morphine shot.
Yeah, up until Fob gave. So then spent a few days at Lahnstuhl in Germany, the hospital over there, and that's where they cut the bullet out. And they showed me the X-ray, and so that's where they had more capabilities than Balad. Well, I'm sure Balad had the capability, but they just didn't do it. Germany was more
better equipped.
Probably, yeah. So, but they rolled me over and made a little incision and cut it out, and still that incision itches every single day.
It itches every day?
Yeah, it itches every day.
Really?
But they pulled the bullet out and put it in a little medicine bottle, and when I came over from launch stool to Walter Reed, I mean, they put me on a stretcher and put a sheet over me. That was it. I was naked. And the only thing I had was that little medicine bottle, and I was like, I was gripping onto it. I'm not leaving it. But while I was in Balad, they let me call home. And I'd already had a plan that if I got hurt, I was going to call my brother because I knew that he would be able to kind of deal with it a little bit better than my parents. Like, I'm not going to call my mom at work and say, hey, by the way, I just got shot.
Right.
So I called my brother and told him, and he would call my parents and tell them. So called my brother. He told my dad. So my dad went over to my mom's school and told her. So she went home and started packing or something. I don't know what she did, but then my dad went over to the bank and told my mother and father-in-law, and then they called my wife down. And probably not the best way of doing it, but my father-in-law's office, he worked at the same bank as my wife. She went down to her dad's office, and the door was closed. And she said the door's never closed unless he's with a client. And so, but he had just called her down, she thought, for lunch. So when she opened the door, her parents and my dad were all standing, and she thought for sure I was dead. But, you know, she gave my dad a hug, and he was able to say he's okay. He just, you know, he got shot. And they ended up coming and meeting me at Walter Reed.
They did.
So once I was in the air from launch stool to Walter Reed, then the Army gave the okay to, they went ahead and bought tickets for my parents and for my wife to come up there. And so I was at Walter Reed for probably not even a day before my family showed up.
Oh, okay.
So that was good. They were there for everything. And that was, I still wanted to be with my guys. And I remember,
Of course.
we were so short-handed, so short-staffed. And we needed every hand we could get. And I knew how hard I was going to work for them. And I remember going down the hallway in the GC when they brought us through that big metal door, and Embry was there, Brandon Embry. And I told him I was sorry because I'm leaving them, they're short-handed. I was going to be there for them the whole time, but I had to leave. So, but anyway, so my family was at Walter Reed.
Hold on, stop the bus. You're on a stretcher, just been shot. Don't know if you're paralyzed or not.
No, I know I'm paralyzed.
You know it. Okay. You've done that self-assessment. On your way to being evac'd, and you're apologizing.
You know better than most just how short-staffed we were.
Yeah.
Just how much we needed everybody. And I knew that I was going to take care of those guys. I knew that I knew how hard I was going to work. Yeah. And yeah, and I mean, it'd been my dream. I'd wanted to be in the military, and here I'm out. And I mean, yeah, I didn't have a diagnosis when I was on the stretcher, but
you knew.
I knew. I mean, you don't have to get hit by a truck to realize, like, okay, I can't move a single thing. That at least at a minimum, life would never be the same. That I'll at least walk with a cane or something.
Right.
That I would never be, like my follow-on unit. I've always wondered what my follow-on unit might have been after Cav. I thought maybe I'd try to go Old Guard or, Ranger Battalion or something. But, like all that was gone.
When did you finally? I mean, there had to have been something like when they said like the the ballistic compression of your spine could be
It
temporary.
was Germany. Germany, they told me what happened. Like,
But did they tell you, hey man, it doesn't look like?
well, so the spinal cord injuries are so weird, and everyone is so different.
Right.
They could say that, hey, usually if you get something back, or if you're going to get something back, it comes in the first 3 months. And I'm going, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks with no change at all. So I'm like, okay, like this, not looking good. But whatever, like I'm still alive. Like that, so much worse could happen. And so I never got down on myself like that, but because I was surrounded by dudes that were so much worse off than I was. The plane ride back from Lawnstool to Walter Reed, it's this massive Air Force plane that is kitted out for stretchers,
Yeah.
and they had everything from walking wounded to dudes that weren't conscious. Like they wouldn't evac guys that were on life support or anything like that, but like they were stable. But I mean, there were dudes that burn victims. There were all kinds of injuries. Like I can live like this, whatever. So yeah, I guess Germany was when they said, hey, this is what happens, and you probably, if you get anything back, it'll be. But I was told that a half dozen times by other doctors continuing on.
Okay.
But what we were trying to figure out was, where did that bullet come from? And so my concern, was like, okay, did that 200-man unit attack? And it never did. Of course, it was full. It was baloney. But trying to figure out where that bullet came in, that was what we were. And so, like, my initial, the first thing I heard was that it was celebratory fire, that they were going to document it as, oh, Ebarb got shot by celebratory fire. And that kind
Who
of
said that?
That kind of pissed me off. Oh gosh, I don't remember who it was. It was somebody I was on the phone with, because we knew the entry point, and we knew where the round ended up, and we knew that one of my lungs was deflated and half my diaphragm was paralyzed, along with like my
Right.
body. So they're thinking that, oh, it must have come down and hit the lung, and then, like I said, they're like, okay, well, that was celebratory fire. So from somewhere in the city, fired up in the air,
I
and
don't
this
know who
bullet.
was pumping that. In there.
Well, someone that
Yeah.
doesn't know guns, because that bullet's lost all its energy and has now come back down, and it's not going to penetrate the way that one did. But anyway, so that one changed. But in fact, it was Embry. It was Brandon Embry. I was on the phone with him a few weeks later. I was in Walter Reed, and he's like, "Hey, sir, what direction were you facing whenever you got shot?" I was like, "I was facing towards the fire escape." He was like, "Yeah, that building was on the right, that room, right, that OP." And so, to this day, you'd be hard pressed to change my mind that it wasn't the Iraqi soldier in that OP on top of that stairwell, because that's the direction it came from. That was the only building that was taller than us. The GC was the tallest building around. It was in the middle of downtown Baqubah. The only thing that separated was these 16-foot T-walls, these concrete T-walls.
Yeah.
So it went in here, it lodged, right here, this level, it follows, and it was from an AK. That's not a Drugnov round. Like, I guarantee you, it was a soldier in that thing. And so that's when the theories of, okay, Lieutenant Muhammad set you up. That was when the theory of, hey, he gave you this bright green folder and this radio with this big old antenna sticking up, which is a mark. And it's true. I already had my ICOM. I was the only one there with an M4 or an M9 on my thigh. So shoot the person with two radios, a bright green folder, and a pistol. That's kind of what we've gone with, the conspiracy theorist.
You don't think anybody would have heard that shot though?
Well, when you're not expecting it. So if you're not expecting a shot, so they did hear it. So Bryant Berg, was on the phone with his family whenever the shot went off, because he's like, I gotta go, something's going on. So they heard the shot, but in an urban area with all those concrete walls around you bouncing off sound, or to bounce sound off of, you're not expecting a shot. You're like, okay, here it goes, 3, 2, 1. Now tell me where it was from.
Okay.
You're not expecting it. There's no way. Look, I don't harbor any ill feelings towards that Iraqi soldier. No one wants to be in an occupied country. No one wants their country to be occupied by a force, by an armed force. He saw it as a potential move, like in chess, and he took a big move and a big risk, and he got away with it. Like, I'm sure he's dead by now. That's good.
Yeah,
But-
because that Iraqi army unit didn't stay out there
No,
much
no,
longer.
and Muhammad got killed too. So
Yeah, so like green on blue, there was a lot of distrust. I mean, really, all the way up until even after the awakening. I remember when we were out at Cop Adam, which actually started to. It was a combat outpost that we put in across the street from the government center, and one of the reasons was it was mutually supporting. What we wound up doing, even in that unit or that building where we were living with them, is we had a guard with a machine gun pointing down that hallway, and the Iraqis were on the other side. So it was one of those things where it's like you're trying to build this trust with these units, but at the same time, it's like when things like this happen, it's like, how are you supposed to build trust, you know? And you just have to have that layer of security, I guess.
yeah,
That was tough, man.
I could have done a lot of things better if I wouldn't have. I mean, I knew I was out in the open. You know, like I knew that we were walking around in the open. That was stupid of me. Like, I wasn't behind cover. I wasn't behind concealment. Nothing. And I mean, that's basic lessons that you learn in the woods at Fort Benning or in the woods at West Point. You know,
Yeah.
when you stop for a security halt, you go for cover, right?
Mm.
At a minimum, concealment if there's no cover around. Why wouldn't you do that in a mountain environment also?
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's a lot of things that I could have done better. So I take my share of responsibility in everything. And that's why, I mean, I can live life like this. It's no big deal.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, after you had gotten shot, that place turned into Fort Knox. A little bit of, you know, like camo netting. I know we brought plywood out,
Yeah.
and put the plywood up as a screen across the top, so you didn't have to walk at a squat.
That's where we were. Yeah.
And
Just-
the camo netting and the screening and this more sand. In fact, I think we were bringing out so many sandbags. We were starting to. I think Pete might have sent Bakey out there to do like a structural assessment. Like, hey, is there enough? Like, is this building sound enough to have this many sandbags out here? But it did. Yeah, the whole platoon just was like, hey, this isn't going to happen again. And obviously it didn't, but you know, thinking that it was a setup, I'm sure you've had 17 years to think about this, right? Like, and play it through your head every chance. Well, I don't know how often it plays through your mind, but
Not really. I mean, like, the thing is, like, it doesn't matter
yeah,
because it still happened.
it's
So,
still
like,
happening.
if Muhammad set me up, he's dead. Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that part's true, but the hill I would die on is that it came from that Iraqi army soldier. Whatever I did to tick him off, I don't know. But hey, more power to you. You made a good move, big move. But I hope you're dead now. So
So you get back, evac, like there's a lot of things happening. You get back. How long did you spend at Walter Reed?
So Walter Reed does head injuries and amputees. they don't do spinal cord injuries real well. That's not their specialty. So I was at Balad for 2 days, 2 or 3 days. Launchstool for about a week, and then Walter Reed for less than, or excuse me, Launchstool for less than that, maybe another 2 or 3 days. About a week I was back at Walter Reed, and then I was there for about 2 weeks before they said, like, hey, look, spinal cord injuries, here's a list of 24 VAs around the country that have spinal cord injury units. You can choose whichever one you want to go to. We'll fly you whichever one you want to go to. And so at that point, I was just like, hey, look, guys, game off. I just want to go home. And so I chose Houston. It was my wife still lived in Natchitoches. She was still doing her bank officer role there. But at the Houston VA, we made the best of it. My family came over. Her family came over all for Thanksgiving. And my father-in-law fried a turkey in the parking lot of the Houston VA. And we had Thanksgiving dinner there at the Houston VA.
Really? Okay. Thanksgiving dinner. And you guys, what was the date you got shot? I'm sorry.
October 31st.
It was Halloween.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your father was frying up a turkey.
Yeah. Father-in-law fried up a turkey in the parking lot of Houston VA. So it was
okay.
The VA it's a good place for what it does. It's a good thing for what it does, and the people there actually care. There's a spinal cord outpatient unit there, and a spinal cord inpatient unit too. The doctors that I had were great. They're all knowledgeable. The director at that outpatient unit is phenomenal. She's been there since I got there. Since I was shot, she's still there. And yeah, the nurses. I mean, I went from having amazing NCOs to amazing nurses, but just I had to learn life, and I mean, it wasn't like how you relearn how to walk. It was like relearn how to do everything. And the things your body tells you, like when you're thirsty or something, like I don't know, like different feelings that you get. I get the same one. There's different now, but they basically, at the VA got me measured me for a wheelchair, got me in a loaner wheelchair while that one was being built, and then put me through PT, which was just make sure that you can go around in life in a wheelchair. Curbs, grass, gravel, sand, asphalt, whatever. And once I was there, and once I finished that, they gave me a big old brown bag of medicine, and it was like a month or two worth of medicine, and said, see you later. And so then I went back to Louisiana on December 22nd, and then December 23rd, we were in the duck blind, duck hunting. So I feel bad. Y'all were still in Iraq fighting the war. I was duck
December 23rd.
I was duck hunting.
You're out duck hunting.
Yep. So my father-in-law was able to, he put up a gator and rigged up camo netting around the gator, because we usually hunted in a blind, but I couldn't get down in the blind. So he made a blind out of the gator. So I just sat we sat in the gator and duck hunted.
The gator, huh?
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable. So many questions.
No, knock yourself
So
out,
many
man.
questions.
Got nothing but time for you.
So the VA took care of you. You went through some physical therapy. I know when I called and I talked to you, you're already driving too. How long did it take you to start driving?
They had a driving coordinator or something like that. The second that you're able to be seated for a longer period of time, because you go from being flat on your back where your equilibrium kind of changed. So like getting me upright took some time, because all the blood rushed out of my head as soon as I was just trying to sit up. So for a couple of days we would lean the hospital bed up more and more and more and more. So as soon as I was able to get, learn how to get dressed, learn how to put some shoes on, and transfer into the car, then the driving coordinator taught us how to do it. I mean, all it is it's stock vehicle. It just has a little hand control for brake and accelerator. But other than that, it's a stock vehicle. Still has the pedals to where anyone else can drive it. It took more time to learn how to disassemble the chair and put the chair in the back of the car and learn how to reassemble the chair than it did to learn how to drive.
I mean, I want to brag on you a little bit, okay?
It won't
Because
take
you're
long.
not going to brag on yourself.
There's not much to say.
How long did it take for you to be discharged from the Army and seek an occupation?
April 14th, they kicked me out of the Army. And to the Army's credit, if I did not want to go, if I did not tell them that I want out, they were not going to kick me out.
Okay.
They said, if you want to stay in the Army, we will find you a job. We will find a position for you. But what the hell? I was an infantry officer. I was with Joe's. What else do I want to do?
All right.
I wanted to get up at 6 a.m. and go on PT. I wanted to go do that stuff
Yeah.
still. I was still full of piss and vinegar. Like I hadn't gotten bitter yet.
How old were you at that time?
24.
24 years old. So let's talk about your secondary career, your fallback plan. So you tell the Army, hey, thanks but no thanks. How long until you started, pursuing another career?
So, all my life I'd wanted to be a soldier.
Uh-huh.
If I couldn't be a soldier, I wanted to join the FBI. And to me, there was nothing more professional than rolling around in a suit and tie with a badge and gun on your hip and arresting people that were hurting other people or doing bad things. And so the West Point Society, chapter of old grads in Houston, I had found out that a young grad was in town and gotten shot in Iraq. So they started coming by and visiting. And they're like, okay, well, what do you want to do now? Like, you either going to go back to school or you're going to start working. Which one? And I'd had enough of school.
Right.
So I said, I guess I'm going to start working. And like, what do you want to do? I was like, well, I want to join the FBI. So there was one old grad that had become a professional golfer and was giving golf lessons to this FBI agent and his girlfriend. And so he had talked to this guy and said, hey, look, there's this guy. Can you come visit him? So this FBI agent brought his buddy, another agent, over. And they're like, hey, look, you can join the FBI, but you can't be an agent because you're paralyzed. And I understand that. But okay. But you can
still get a gun?
But you can be an analyst.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, well, that's not what I want. Like, I wanted to be an agent. I want to go kick doors. I want to go SWAT. I want to do this different stuff. So thank you very much, but no thank you. If I can't do what I want to do, I'm going to go and make money. So I went and worked for this oil company. Another West Pointer, a guy named Bill York. He's a executive headhunter. And so he set me up with 6 job interviews in 5 days. And so I think probably the best one was Hewlett Packard. I interviewed with Hewlett Packard, and they came back and they said, "Hey, we can't do it," because look, when you graduated, you didn't graduate as a major or a captain or you only graduated as a lieutenant. Really? That's what y'all hold against me? So Hewlett Packard wouldn't hire me because I didn't graduate as a captain. So anyway, this smaller oil company, Tauber Oil Company. They said, hey, look, we'll bring you on. We'll move you around to, well, you don't know where you're going to go, but this is how much we'll pay you, and we'll find a spot that you want to be in. And so they showed a lot of faith in me, a lot of trust, and so I went with Tauber. and you know, I couldn't complain. They were paying me twice as much as what I was making as a lieutenant. So, but I made it about 9 months before I was miserable. Well, before that, I was miserable before that. I still remembered what it was like to put my boots on in the morning. I still remembered what it was like to serve a purpose.
Yeah.
And have a mission. And all I was doing was making my boss more money. And I remember there was one time I used a relationship with with a buddy that I made to save my boss on the loading or discharging of oil or something. We ended up saving him like $14 million or so. And he didn't really care. He's like, okay, cool, thanks. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm definitely done then.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't even care that, and he does. He's a good guy. And my boss was a great boss. But it wasn't what I needed. And so during my lunch hour, I was going back and applying for the bureau. And so I called back and talked, and I was like, hey, is that intelligence gig still good? And they said yes. And so I went back. So I retired. The Army retired me April 14th, and I started working for Tallbrook April 17th. And then I ended up leaving 9 months later and going to Quantico in 2008. So spent 3 months at Quantico, and then came back to Houston VA, or Houston field office. And I was at Houston for 14 years. And what I learned was that you could make the job what you wanted. So if you wanted to sit in a cubicle somewhere and have reporting brought to you, and you just read it and maybe write something up and send it off, you can do that. Or you could go and be part of the collection process and part of the interviewing process and part of the intelligence cycle. And so I got in a pretty proactive role.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed it. But about 2 years ago, got out at 14 years, and now I'm contracting with Department of Energy. I have a daughter now. She's 10 years old now. She was 8 at the time, and she was still wanting me to be around. And so I know that's not going to last forever. So I figured, okay, well, this contracting gig lets me work from home. So that's what I'm doing now, is contracting with the DOE. I'm assigned to a lab up in Idaho. And so DOE, Department of Energy, has this series of 17 national labs around the country. So Los Alamos National Laboratory is one that's really well known for their nuclear weapons testing. But Idaho National Laboratory doesn't do any weapons testing, no weaponization. It's all critical infrastructure, nuclear energy for electricity. So about once a quarter, I travel back with my team. We're all remote, and we go back and meet up at the lab, and
Okay.
we maintain our security. Everybody's from the intelligence community, so from FBI, CIA, military intelligence, and so everybody still has their TSSCI. And so we go back and get in the skiff and read up on the latest stuff.
You have something else in the pipeline too, right?
You talking about shooting?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I've always been a gun guy. I've always loved shooting. And that's the one thing that I've always done since I got shot. Huge shooter. I've loved shooting because the sight picture, sight alignment doesn't change. Trigger control doesn't change. That bullet still goes the same speed, whether I'm, in a wheelchair or not.
Yeah.
So, competing 3-gun competitions, that was a lot of fun. 3 guns were rifle, pistol, and shotgun. And when the stages are static and it's all about weapons manipulation and how fast can you reload that shotgun and how fast can you, transition. I was competitive with my buddies, but it's when there's movement from firing point to firing point or station to station. I can't do that as quickly.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't as fun. I couldn't be competitive.
Is there any videos of you doing this?
I definitely have pictures. Yeah, I have videos of it.
Can you please send
Yeah.
send some of it. Because here's the thing, man. Again, you're not going to brag on yourself, but that's totally badass. 3-gun shoot.
It was fun.
I think I would love. Anyways,
No,
that's
It was a good time. So, but the 3-gun stuff, and not being able to shoot or practice 3-gun indoors, like in my house.
yeah.
I have a buddy that he worked with me. He was a career Secret Service agent and then transitioned over to a NASA OIG agent, and he coaches a local 4-H shooting team. And he kept telling me I need to come out and shoot this air pistol and just try it. But going from center fire to air,
Right.
There's something. It's something about it's not manly. It's
Like,
not.
no smell of gunpowder.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's not lethal. So, so I was like, no, if it's 9 mil or less, I'm not into it. But I went out there, and those guns are engineered to where they shoot the same hole at 10 meters every single time. And the guns that you buy, they come with a test target, and it's literally just one hole at 10 meters. The 10 round target at 10 meters, just one hole. So it's all about the fundamentals of marksmanship. It's all about what you can do. And so I shot and did decently, but I mean, it was definitely something to improve on and a place to build off of. And so I started getting addicted to the improvement and seeing that, okay, if I work hard off the range and on the range, then my score goes up. So now, we went and spent 2 weeks at a camp at the Olympic Training Center at Colorado Springs, and got to meet the coaches, the Olympic, Paralympic coaches. And so I'm going to try and make a run for making the team. But
Okay.
for now, I'm just trying to. You have to shoot a resume like a resume of scores. So at least 5 competitions in a year, and then the average of that is what is going to decide whether or not you can make it onto the team or not. So I'll give it a go. So now every minute that I don't have that I'm not working, I'm training, just working on conditioning and shooting.
Condition shooting. I have a feeling you'll be pretty successful at it.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop until I do. Until I reach that plateau. Hopefully that plateau is above where I need to be,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to stop till I reach that plateau of my
Yeah.
talent.
Coming
skill,
from the guy that brings his own ACOG and magazines, and I like nowadays. I think like custom loads and there's a lot more flexibility in people bringing their own stuff, but when you did it back in 06, that wasn't typically a normal thing.
There's
bringing
an
an ACOG and all your own magazines.
Well,
and
I want to
what
make
have
sure it
you.
works. But
course.
there's an M4 out there somewhere in the Army that has a Hogue grip on it because I changed out the pistol grip on it from the old A2 pistol grip to a Hogue.
Yeah.
I never got that pistol grip back, but I didn't want to tell you that I had. It's like, hey, first sergeant, will you take the pistol grip off my rifle?
Yeah.
And how many times did you get like side-eyed when you were trying to ship an NSN item out of country?
At least twice. It's like, okay.
Where you were jumping through hoops to try and get my stuff back to me?
I carried it back.
Yeah.
I carried it back, and I mailed it from Copper Cove here. And it was the magazines. I think that was. I think I sent back magazines
Yeah,
for you
you did.
too, and I think those drew a little bit more attention than the ACOG did. But
That's funny because those are like $10 each, and the ACOG is like 1,000 plus.
yeah, it certainly wasn't inexpensive. So let's talk a little bit about resiliency, right? Because again, you're not going to brag on yourself, but what you're doing, it might not be a big deal as you're going through it, right? Like you don't see it as a big deal you're just adapting to a new situation, right? There's a lot of people out there that struggle for one reason or another, and I think you touched on it as you were talking about finding a new mission, right? What's some of the things that you would recommend to somebody that is adapting to a new situation and they're struggling?
Oh man, I'm probably not the best person to give advice. Because it to me, it's like, just shut up and do it.
Sometimes that's good advice. Quit getting in your head and do it.
Yeah. So I guess if I were to say, if somebody was trying something new and a new situation where it was, facing adversity, the biggest thing is don't give up. That's the absolute biggest thing, is don't quit. You take the quitting, and it's not like you're, okay, today I can't quit today. I can't quit. It's not even an option.
Right.
It's not even on the table. That's what you have to do. And I think when you do that, and then it's not an option, now the only thing left is to succeed. Because if you're not going to you won't let yourself be subpar at something. You don't want to be that guy that just is the one that just sucks at your job. So if you have no opportunity to quit, it was almost like at Ranger School. If you don't quit, they won't kick you out. Like, unless it was like a safety violation or something like that, but they won't kick you out. You could have been horrible, but they won't kick you out if you won't quit. They'll day one you, and they'll day zero you, or they'll recycle a phase, but they won't kick you out. And if you can it's not even in your head to quit. It's not in your head no matter how bad this road march is, there's always an end. It always ends. That adversity that you're facing, it always ends. That's probably the biggest thing, is
Take it off the table.
Yeah, it's just not even an option. And that was, I mean, everything that I've gone through that I can think of in life is just, it's just not even an option.
Yeah.
You find whatever motivates you. If it motivates you, like, as silly as it was, what motivated me a lot through Ranger was, I knew I was going to get married after Ranger School. I don't want to go through a wedding in my blues without a tab. I want that little tab, and that will motivate you. And then the other thing, I mean, like, it's something that, that in particular is something that you can be proud of for the rest of your life. So I'm proud I went to Ranger School and didn't stop. But I don't know, things happen to other people. I know some people get injured, but just don't quit. I don't know. Now I'm just repeating the same thing.
Did when you joined the FBI, did you get a badge and a gun?
No, you get creds, the credentials, these things that you can show that say FBI. But badge and gun is just agents.
That's the analysis part.
Yeah, and it was. Yeah,
I know I don't know how much you can talk about, but I knew you did some pretty cool stuff with the FBI too.
It was fun.
know.
But I mean, it was the joke with buddies of mine. Okay, if we're out to lunch and something goes down, just give me your gun. I'm going to shoot them, and I'll give you the gun, and you can claim it.
Right.
But it was, that was the joke. And if there was ever a gun question, we'd constantly, like, I was friends with agents. I mean, I had other analysts that I knew, but I wasn't friends with. There were a couple that I really respect, but when I go out to lunch, I'm hanging out with agents, because that's just the type of people that I identify with.
Yeah.
And it eventually, the first thing that you meet when you meet me, you meet the chair. Like, you see me, you see a wheelchair. Before you ever shake my hand, you see the wheelchair. Before I ever say hi, you see the wheelchair. That's fine. But people that have known me for a while, something that's been pretty cool is, we'll go to lunch, and so there's one thing I joined with the TOC, the Tactical Operations. Same thing in the military, the TOC. SWAT deploys with the TOC. When the snipers are on one channel and the assaulters are on one channel and command is on one channel, all of them talk to the TOC, and then the TOC pushes out who needs to hear what. So I, go out and training with SWAT, and we're going to lunch, and I make it inside, and buddies are all sitting around at these like standing tables, the higher tables at a restaurant.
Yeah, the high toppers.
I'm like, what the hell? Like, I go and put my chin on. I was like, what the hell were you thinking? Like, and they're like, oh, we forgot you were in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, I'll accept that. That's cool. And so that's, thankfully, the guys that are around me for a while, they start to forget until we have to face it. Like, until there's not a ramp into a building, so they have to
Right.
pick me up or something like that. But yeah, with the bureau, it was a lot of fun. It was a good job.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, you did it for 14 years, and you're
I'm
good at it.
I'm glad I got out when I did.
Yeah.
Both for family and financial reasons, and now with everything's become so politicized with the bureau, and it's heartbreaking to see how a few people inside the bureau have tarnished the reputation, because like back when Trump was first elected, they were not politically leaning one way or the other. I'm just saying that they were politically leaning in an organization that's supposed to be completely neutral, third party, neutral investigation, impartial. They made a decision to be, partial to one person, and then to go further and say, like, okay, well, this can't happen. We can't let them. So, I hate that that's happened, because now, when I first started, whenever we'd knock on the door, people would talk to us. People would always talk to us. People would always invite us in, happy to talk to us, because they knew that we're trying to do the right thing.
Right.
And I think the people in the FBI still are. The rank and file still are.
Yeah.
But now there's been a couple people that just went off. So
I
anyway,
have a lot of good friends that are, agents, and and I agree. I think it's the rank and file. There's still a lot of people out there doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And
so that's but now they're running into more and more people that say, show me a warrant, and close the door.
yeah.
And I can't say I blame them, because if the bureau showed up on my doorstep, I'd tell them to show me their warrant also. But anyway, but I'm glad I did what it did when I did it. And within the bureau, you're allowed to move around if you want to from counterintelligence, working one country, to you can work another country, or if you want to work from counterintelligence to criminal, to counterterrorism, to domestic terrorism, to cyber, you can work it all.
Yeah.
And so I was really, really lucky in my career to work 4 or 5 major areas, like cyber and counterintelligence. That really was a lot of fun, a lot of good memories.
So there's going to be a lot of soldiers that know you, that watch this. Any shout outs or any closing comments to the troopers?
Man, there's so many people that I would love to give them a shout out, but I would be scared to death that I would miss one, and a deserving one. But to the guys of 3rd Platoon Bravo Company, the warriors of 3rd Platoon Bravo Company, absolutely. They are thought of very often and very fondly in my mind.
They are. The mighty Blue Platoon.
Blue Platoon, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, and your fellow officers, right? Pete Chapman holding it down up at West Point, and Lieutenant Bakey, who's now Colonel, Colonel Moffett. You know, definitely some solid individuals.
Yeah.
I know they're going to be watching, and yeah, man, it was a blessing to have you on the team. It was one of those things where you trained, equipped, deployed, executed, didn't end the way you wanted it to. I know it was a big loss for the platoon. It was a big loss for the company when you left. You know, we're always trained to soldier on, and you know the next man up piece is I mean that's what the Army does, right? Next man up.
They have to.
You know, and the platoon did take some hard hits after you left. They got a great PL in to backfill you.
Yeah.
Definitely took some hard hits, and but they were very successful as well. You know, but success did come at a cost.
Yeah, being here in the 112
Yeah.
Cav, I haven't really looked around this room. It's a room full of, you know, your viewers are seeing just a handful of it, but above you and behind you are the pictures of all the troopers that were killed, and I didn't see them until we were in the middle of talking, and yeah, seeing like Camacho and Bird, they're thought of quite often and very, very fondly. Yeah. So that's all I can say about it. It's like I will, and my daughter knows these names. My daughter knows Ryan Berg. Ryan Berg was probably my favorite soldier. And you know, I just watched. It's what, November 14th today, so right after Veterans Day, right?
Yeah.
I just watched his mom, Miss Scotty, give a speech about Ryan for Veterans Day to a local school. And one thing, I don't know if she knows, and I don't know if she remembers, but when Ryan came home, he was one that was allowed to go home for Christmas. And I was still in the VA, the Houston VA. When he flew in, he came to the VA before he went home. And I remember him at the nurses station asking for Lieutenant Ebarb, and they weren't going to tell him where I was because he wasn't family. And he was fighting with the nurses, and I remember I heard his name, and I just yelled out, "Bird!" And he came tearing off in there, gave me a big old hug. I was still laid up in the bed at that point. I wasn't pushing around in a chair, I was in the bed whenever he came. But no, he was the whole group of guys that were with Berg and 3rd Platoon in the company. They were so motivated. But yeah, he was just especially motivated, and I stole him from Sammy Reynolds. He was on Sammy's track. He was driver on Sammy's track, and I was like, "Hey, can I have Berg?" And we were in the platoon office one time. I was like, "Hey, I really want Berg," and so I had him and Sergeant Wall.
Yeah,
I could not have asked for a better crew. Couldn't. Gunnery was one of the most fun things that I went through with them. It was so much fun. But anyway.
Yeah, they're American heroes. They are.
Yeah, it's been. Oh, you have to look at them too.
Yeah, it's certainly hallowed ground in here.
It is. This is pretty amazing.
And with that, I think we're gonna call it a wrap. All right. Well, hey, sir. I think this is a wrap on your debrief.
Yeah.
And I absolutely I'm very glad that you were able to come up and talk and hang out. And I mean, I haven't seen you since 2006, and Yeah, so well overdue. We have a 20-year reunion coming up in Dallas, so like kind of around the corner from you.
That's
And,
not bad.
I look forward to seeing you at the
Yeah.
reunion. And,
Well, I hope that I hope that everyone also sees all these accomplishments that you've done with putting this together and building churches and how many people you've brought to Christ. So, which is an even more amazing accomplishment than anything that we've done.
I'll tell you, it's a good day when people turn their life over to Jesus Christ, and so it's yeah, that's another mission I'm on, and I got two missions, so yeah.
Well, you stay busy.
All right.
You can get a dog next. Okay.
Cool, sir.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you more than you know.